2017. We'll begin by reviewing the agenda. At 7 o'clock, we have announcements, followed by the review, which we're going forward with. At 7:05, we have a public comment period where you have a few minutes to come up to the microphone, tell us what might be on your mind, ask us some questions. If we can answer them tonight, we shall. If we can't, we will get back to you with those answers. That'll be followed by adopting the revised Selectmen policies and procedures, and a vote may be taken, followed by a review of the open meeting law training policy and consider amending said policy, to review the first draft of the 2017 Fall Town Meeting warrant, and to consider opening the 2017 Fall Town Meeting warrant to add a citizen's petition article to rezone 279 Main Street. And at 7:15, we will have a presentation from the Groton Neighbors. That will be followed by an annual report from the Economic Development Committee, and that will be followed by a public hearing at 7:45 for a liquor license at 20 Station Avenue, change of premises and transfer of license from Groton Center Station LLC to Station House Restaurant LLC. Followed by other business, where a request from Selectman Pease to reconsider the wording of a mission statement, followed by a discussion on Selectmen's authority relative to the inclusion of articles on town meeting warrant, and that would be followed by a discussion of the makeup of the Audit Review Committee. And then liaison reports, followed by minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of August 28th, 2017, and executive session minutes of July 24th, 2017. Before we begin, I'd like to take a quick moment to touch on a couple tragic issues that have occurred in this nation and most recently in our town's history. 16 years ago today, a tragic event occurred in the United States where over 3,000 people lost their lives through terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in Pennsylvania. And many folks lost their lives. First responders put themselves in harm's way to try and help those affected, and we all must learn to live together and to honor those that died and to respect our first responders. On a local note, we had an extremely tragic event occur last Friday evening where 4 individuals lost their lives through an act of domestic violence and were brutally beaten to death. And this was not a random act, but a targeted act. And these individuals live their lives daily here in Groton peacefully, the way we all try to do, and at the hands of an individual lost their lives that day. Yesterday, we had a vigil to honor their lives and to try and bring some cohesiveness within the community in the wake of that tragedy, and it was well attended. However, we must remember to love each other, to tell each other that we love each other, to say hello, and to remember the dead that unfortunately passed away this past Friday night. So on both notes, very tragic, very solemn, and hopefully we can learn a lesson about how to all get along from that. Moving on, we do have any additional announcements from anyone?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Town Hall will be closed for mandatory training of town employees. We will close probably around 9:45 and then open up back around 12:30. So we're sorry for any inconvenience that may cause, but this training is important.
Thank you. Any Selectmen announcements?
Just like to say thank you to Mark and Melissa and Tom Orcutt and Don, who were our task town employees serving lunch to all of our seniors and our firemen at the Groton 9/11 memorial. It's actually called Patriot Day now, I understand, and there's a longer things. And I want to relay something that I heard that our Representative Sheila Harrington said during the meeting, which was that today should be known as First Responder Day. And I thought that was quite appropriately stated because on days like this, we remember not just Patriot, but the first responders who are always there, ready, and just to go into whatever needs to be taken care of, as they did in 9/11 and as they did last Friday. So I thought that was a useful bit of information. Just a wonderful statement from our state rep that was worthwhile to get out to the rest of the public.
Anything else? We now turn to our public comment period. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask or say? Seeing none, we will move on to our town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the, on page 4 of your packet, Selectman Manugian spent a lot of time going through the Selectmen's policies and procedures. She amended them and proposed changes to them. She removed things that were repetitive in other sections of either town bylaws or town charter, which do not need to be done. She updated them. I think she did a great job. I hope you've all had a chance to go through them. And if you have, I would ask the Board of Selectmen to vote tonight to adopt these as your new Selectmen policies and procedures.
So basically, Mark went through...
Allison.
Well, I was going to say, Allison did the hard work in terms of going through our many policies and procedures. And once we adopted a charter, a lot of that stuff was codified within the charter. And Allison reviewed the charter against our policies and procedures to see if there was any redundancy between the two, as the charter trumps any policy we may have that the charter covers. She did yeoman's work. I think she then reviewed it with Mark and then brought it forward into one concise document which contains everything, and that's what we are moving forward with for consideration this evening. Any questions from anyone? Becky?
So I'm not sure this is the time or place. There were several places where I thought the language was strange. And I imagine that Allison isn't responsible. I imagine she was just taking stuff that was already written that was strange. Is this the place where we should clean those things up?
Well, if I may make a suggestion, if it doesn't change the intent or the purpose of the policy, if you have type of scrivener's errors or things like that, I'd ask you to get those to me and I can make those changes after the fact. I don't think we need to, go through it now. That would be my suggestion.
Some of them are certainly of that nature. Do you want me to just mention a couple others that I think maybe we should talk about at some point?
Well, certainly your point is taken, and I'd like to know specifically what you believe to be strange. And I'm not questioning whether it is or it isn't. But right now, the purpose of this document was just to clean things up for us. And if we could move forward with adopting this one, procedures and practices document, it can be amended at any point. And certainly, if you bring up your changes, run them by Mark, run them by Allison, and then we can put it on for a subsequent agenda for us to change that language if required. Unless, of course, you want to delay this vote and bring that up. However,
I'm willing to vote for it, but there are a couple places where I think what is said opens up questions that are not answered, and either we should change the language or answer the question. So I guess what would you suggest? Should I talk with Allison afterwards about this? Should we together propose some possible changes?
I think that's fair.
yeah, I mean, as long as we don't get a quorum and an email discussion going, there's certainly no reason that one selectman can't talk to the one that was charged and work with the town manager to do that, and then you can bring those forward. Does that sound fair?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I'm okay with voting it now, and we can propose some amendments another time.
Sounds good. Any questions from other selectmen? Questions from the public? Motion?
Allison, you have to move your own document?
Wait 15 seconds, I'll tell you.
I move that we adopt the spirit, if not the letters, of the policy that Allison has so kindly eviscerated and reconstituted for our reviewing pleasure. You don't have to say that one.
Motion's been made and seconded. Under comments, the only thing that I would ask is that we get a clean copy without the strikeouts.
We'll have that.
Yeah,
I'll
but
update that. Just make a note to do that.
But let's not do that until
I
we
won't
have...
distribute it until you guys look over the
Right.
stuff.
You also want to
Just let me
change,
know what you want to change.
And change the date.
you need to change the revision date also,
Yeah,
but
revision
that's
date
minor.
to today. Okay, so motions been made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, while determining the date for the open meeting law training that the selectmen had requested, Dawn discovered a policy, and it was part of her summer project, which she relives on a regular basis. The board had adopted a policy in 2014 relative to open meeting law training. You voted that instead of requiring that appointed individuals attend the night of training, that the board require the individuals to read the open meeting law guide, complete a certificate at the end of the guide certifying that they received and read the guide and understood the requirements, and then return it to the selectman's office. Newly appointed committee members receive that from the town clerk when they get sworn in, and then they respond to the selectman's office. And I think that's been working pretty well. So before we schedule another night and bring town council out, we have a policy in place. Do we really need to do another night of training? That's my question to the board. Personally, would you like my recommendation? No, I think Barry said no. So I
Well,
will.
if you're going to ask the board, you can ask the board. If you're going to tell us, tell us.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. I think this is a good policy, and I think another night of training is not necessary.
Comments on the board?
Well, I would actually disagree. I think that it would be useful for all of us to have a discussion together to hear what is the most accurate and up-to-date and current understanding of the open meeting law. And I think all of us reading something individually may not, all of us together may come up with some questions that really would be useful to hear the answers to, and we might not think of individually.
Yeah.
Barry?
So I think that in a slant of what Becky is saying, what I think of the Board of Selectmen, and I wouldn't enforce this upon other committees, is that it might be useful for the Board of Selectmen to have a collaborative dialogue with an expert where she can, or he, although we understand it's a she at the law firm, can tell us the open meeting laws, and then we can conjecture and get these nuanced little issues out in the open and discussed amongst us for understanding. So while I think the policy may be valid and hold true amongst many of our volunteer boards and other elected boards, I think the Board of Selectmen has a special place where we need to be extremely wary given what we handle. And we handle a lot of things that edge towards that boundary, and some of us edge on the side of caution and some of us edge on the side of aggressiveness. And I'd rather us all hear the same thing and collaborate and debate, and that's perhaps the same thing with an expert, so that we can hash those out and perhaps even come to an understanding amongst ourselves, amongst this team in that meeting. So while I don't necessarily think it's for the entire, town, I think for this board it would be very useful.
Allison?
So I guess I am more aligned with Barry. I think that in this particular case, the open meeting law is very broad, but parts of it are very clear and very straightforward. So to me, the idea of having a document or an online tutorial or something that folks read to get the basics makes a lot of sense. I think there are always subtle things that come up as the body moves along, and that it makes sense perhaps to have, somebody come out as with a much deeper knowledge to kind of answer those kinds of questions. Whether that's just for the selectmen or whether that's for other boards makes a lot of sense, but I think that there's a lot, I think back to the video and the presentation a year or two ago, that there's just so much that is fairly straightforward and basic that can be absorbed from a written document, that to have everyone sit through 2 or 3 hours of the basics is more frustrating than beneficial.
Okay. I as well think that the selectmen should certainly go through a Q&A and an update on the open meeting law. And I think that as a takeaway from that meeting that we have with, I presume, Lauren Goldberg from Town Council, who's actually very...
She's the expert.
I was going to say that, but yes. She is the expert, she's very good, and no matter how many times we hear the open meeting law and the changes, it's a lot of gray area in the open meeting law. And it's very easy to break the open meeting law unintentionally. And I think that your point's well taken, Barry, and I'm in agreement we should do that. As it applies to other appointed boards in this town, whether it be the selectman's appointment or the town manager's appointment, I think that we can follow through with the requirements that you're asking for the online training, sign a certificate, but if a certificate isn't signed by the individual by, let's say, within 3 months of their appointment, that the selectmen have the right to revoke that appointment. And I want that included, if we're not going to require mandatory training, to be included with any updated policy and procedure. I've witnessed many times unintentionally violations of the open meeting law through other committees on which I serve, and I don't want to see that occur. And it's pretty simple. You read the law, you try and understand it. If you don't understand it, you call the selectman, or you call the town manager, or you call the town clerk, and you look for clarification on that. But serial communication via email seems to be the biggest thing that I've seen that committees will do, and it's very unintentional. You're trying to communicate information about things, but you can't do it. You can convey certain things, like we're meeting on September 11th, 2017 at 7 p.m. and are you all going to be there? That's fine. But as soon as you start debating something that may be on an agenda or comes up on an agenda, that's when you're breaking the law.
Even offering an opinion.
Yeah, even offering an opinion. So I'd be willing to go along with us meeting with town council and willing to amend the policy that we may have that requires newly appointed board members under the town manager. Actually, I'll make a motion that we amend the policy that we have to require newly appointed board members to any committee under the town manager's appointment authority or the board of selectmen's appointment authority to complete the training and return a certificate to the board of selectmen or suffer removal from that board.
I think that's already in writing
Or if it's
someplace.
not, it needs to be.
I think that is in your policy. I don't know if it has a 3-month timeline, but
Well, that's
I
what.
think it does have a time
does it have
limit.
a timeline?
And so I don't think we need to change the policy at all. I think we just need to schedule a meeting for ourselves.
Well, I have town council booked for Wednesday, October 4th. And I think if the board is willing to meet on that night, that's the night we should bring her out to do the training. And then she can do it right here in this room, post it as a selectmen's meeting, put it on TV, and then anybody who wants to come and attend can come and attend. So please let me know if October
Wait,
4th.
this is during the daytime, is that?
7 p.m.
Oh, 7 p.m. on the 4th?
October
of
4th at 7, that's what I booked town
I
council.
can't do it.
You can't do October 4th at 7?
I'm teaching a pruning class at Prescott School.
So we
I
should,
think I signed up for that class now.
so we should find a date when we can all do it.
All right, I'll have to pay. I think you should do it on an off Monday night, and just because it's like a 2-hour tutorial that
Right.
she does. So let me get some more dates from Lauren and send that out to the board.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to delay the rest of my town manager's report and defer to Groton Neighbors. I'd ask Bob to come up to the table.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And I'm going to turn this over to
There's a
John.
There's a microphone on the table. There's a microphone on
There's
the
a mic
table.
on the table.
You're all set.
So, John, can you-
Thanks. Good evening.
John, can you advance the slides for me?
Yep. Yep.
Hello.
Shall I go?
Good to go.
The stage is
Well,
yours.
I'd like to introduce Pat Hartwigson. She is Groton Neighbors Outreach Chair, and I'm Bob Lotz. I'm President of Groton Neighbors. We're here to introduce ourselves to the board and to anyone else that's here or watching, and to invite you to get to know us a little bit. If you are, attracted to what we're doing, which we think is a good operation, participate with us or let other folks in town know. Next slide, thanks. Groton Neighbors is an all-volunteer, not-for-profit of Groton residents. And what we do for each other is to help each other stay in our homes as we age, as we get older. And as some things that we maybe could do for ourselves before, we are finding more difficult. That's kind of the first part. The second part is that we are connecting on things that we have common interests and connecting with, staying connected and keeping folks connected with things going on in the community. Groton Neighbors is affiliated with a national network of other organizations doing pretty much the same thing called villages, each one customized to its own community, as we are here. More than 200 villages across the nation and about 8 in Massachusetts. We had 15 members a year ago. We have 67 now, and we're growing. And we hope that after people get to know us, we will continue to grow in Groton. Next slide, thanks. So what we do for each other is to help with rides, such as going to a medical appointment or to go shopping for food. And also just if a member wants a ride downtown to go have coffee with a friend. We help with home tasks such as moving heavy furniture or maybe changing a light bulb that's kind of too high to reach. And we help with technology, cell phones, televisions, computers, that sort of thing. And as I mentioned, we connect through mutual interests. We think of ourselves as kind of a town-wide neighborhood, and like a neighborhood, the point is connection. So anyone that participates with us is a member. So whether a person is mainly helping out and providing services and maybe spending time with others, or whether someone needs some assistance with things, everyone is a member. We launched in January of 2017, and we're fully operational now. And the way that works is a member can make a phone call to a single number or send an email, and then one of our office staff, volunteer office staff, nobody's paid a salary. We're a complete nonprofit, all volunteer. One of our office staff can match up that request with a previously entered offer for service that another member has. And so that's the way we operate. And membership costs $120 per year. We are we cover all of our expenses with that, and so we don't need to be competing with other organizations in town for money. We're sort of self-funding. Now, if that membership fee is an obstacle for anyone to joining Groton Neighbors, we have subsidy. We can take care of that. So it will not be. We will say it will not be an obstacle. The next slide shows the folks that have helped to put this organization together and are keeping it running. And so, a shout out to everybody there. And they're all important. One of the important people is our outreach chair, Pat Hartwigson. She's going to conclude our presentation.
Thank you. Next slide, please. As you know, Groton is a community rich in resources and in opportunities, and we want Groton Neighbors to become another important piece of our strong community. Reaching out to other organizations was a top priority for us from the very beginning. We continue to connect with and collaborate with the organizations that you see here, and that's an ever-expanding list. Since that list is before you, I'm not going to reread it, but I do want to highlight a few. From the Council on Aging, Kathy Shelp has been hugely supportive and helpful to us from the very beginning. She makes it clear that any organization that is supporting seniors, she welcomes. And we greatly appreciate her ongoing advice and support. Chief Palma and the Groton Police Department have helped us in a number of important ways. They make badges for us, ID badges, so if we show up at your house, you know that we are the person that you are expecting. Chief Palma has also given us a lot of wise advice, and he's offered us space when we've needed it for training and meetings. Chief McCurdy has given us the Files of Life. We now use this when we have our first membership conversation with members, and it's a win-win. It helps keep our members safe. but also first responders need this information if they need to come into your home. As Bob mentioned, we offer rides, and many of the organizations that we've linked with are providing opportunities. We want our members to know that they're there and that we can get you to those. And we're starting to link those on the Groton Neighbors website. So we remain in connection with all of them so that we can continue to find ways to collaborate and ways that we can partner to provide new opportunities. Next slide, please. So a quick summary and an invitation. You have our brochure and our frequently asked questions. Those are yours for your reference. We hope you'll also visit our website, www.grotonneighbors.org, or you can contact us by phone, 978-272-0123. Calls are answered Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. Either of those are great ways to be in touch with us if you have questions, want more information, or seek membership. We are very enthusiastic about having Groton Neighbors provide another way to help residents of Groton stay in their home and remain connected in their communities. We know from talking to current members that those who have received services are very appreciative for that support, and members who have reached out to help others have found it enormously gratifying to be able to help. So both of those are great reasons to join. So finally, we hope you and anyone listening will seek us out to get more information, consider becoming a member, and please get the word out. We want people to know that we're out there. So thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Very good. And what a great resource. It's a really good idea, and certainly neighbors helping neighbors, Grotonians helping Grotonians is a great concept. So it sounds like a win-win situation. Board members, questions, comments?
I just, as a member, an early member, actually, but I also want to just highlight, I think Groton is rich as a community because of all of the nonprofit organizations that we have, where people have stepped forward to do things that maybe we didn't even think of before, and then there's this wonderful resource available for us.
Great.
Thanks, Becky.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. You're welcome. We should probably maybe ask Jane Bouvier if she has time to go on her show.
It's on our list.
Please let us know what we can help.
There you go. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we'll continue with your town manager's report, actually.
Well, I'll defer at 7:30. I'll defer to the Economic Development Committee, and I will tell you, depending on how long their presentation goes, at 7:45, I need you to pause the meeting, open the public hearing for the liquor license, and either dispose of that quickly or adjourn, finish economic, and then come back to that.
Sounds
I will
good.
tell you that the liquor license hearing should be about a 2.5 second.
Yeah, but it's a time certain due to advertising.
Have to do it at 7:45.
So we will continue on with that then. So, Economic Development Committee, Mike Rasmussen, you're the chair still?
I think so, yes. Just checking to see who we have here. We have several members of the Economic Development Committee here this evening. I believe the board received a copy of bios and
It's up on the
other
screen.
things. Okay. So I won't spend a lot of time going over what everyone does, but I guess a question mark, you couched this as our annual report to the board. That wasn't quite how we originally understood this meeting, but we can certainly tell you what's going on with the Economic Development Committee.
If I miscategorized the agenda, I apologize. I thought that's what we were doing, just get an update from the Economic Development Committee on where they stand and what has transpired since the last time we met with them. If I misunderstood that, I apologize.
Originally, I think Mr. Petropoulos had requested a meeting with the Economic Development Committee, and this is sort of what it turned into, I think. But that being said,
Well, the selectmen usually request of all committees, major committees that we appoint, that we get an annual report. So Mark may have understood it one way. I certainly understand that you wanted a continuation of Mr. Petropoulos' request for a meeting, and in his absence, he has provided me with a rather lengthy email, which I will be reading at some juncture, which he requested me to do. But if you'd like to tell us what you're doing, and then follow it up with something in writing in terms of what's occurred between last year and now, that'd be great.
we could do that, Josh. I'll throw out the idea of maybe postponing the annual report to another time so we can actually prepare something in writing to give you and then talk about it. And, you know, if you want to just jump into the questions that Jack had and, you know, tackle that, because I know there's a tight agenda. We do have members, John Konechny here, we have Gina Cronin, Faye Rayner, Russ Burke, Art Prest, myself, and our liaison, Allison Manugian. So we got pretty much a full crew. We are down one member, so we do have one opening and present. But given the time and the fact that we didn't prepare an annual report for you, I think maybe that makes more sense. And I know you have a tight agenda tonight as well.
Well, would you like to hear what Jack had to say, or would you like to continue on?
I think we should hear what Jack had to say.
I was so hoping for a peaceful meeting this evening.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just kind of jump in sort of as the liaison who's attended a number of obviously both of these meetings.
Please do.
You know, I think it's important probably to hear what Jack has to say, but I also think it's really important for both boards to be focused on, you know, collaboration and how we're moving forward together, because there's certainly tremendous overlap of shared vision and goals and love of our community. And that's, I think, far more important than some of the nuanced details that folks have gotten bogged down in.
I understand that, but, you know,
recent.
as much as I really don't want to read this letter, it was requested that I read this letter. And
Understood.
if, as a board member, I couldn't attend a meeting and something was on the agenda and I wanted something said, and the chair said, I'll read it, and then didn't do so, that would not be a good thing.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to read it, depending on what it says. It may or may not make a lot of sense to spend time discussing it.
I understand, so
Oh,
maybe
can I throw out one more idea?
you,
Considering
all
Jack's
is.
not here, and obviously he was a catalyst for his email and concerns, maybe we ought to flip it around, try to give you an update on what we've been doing, make this the annual report, and wait till another time to meet with Jack.
Well, you don't have an annual report that you voted on.
Well, we did talk about a presentation, and just to give you an update, it wasn't intended to be an annual report, but I think the annual report would be largely what we were going to present this evening, and we could follow this presentation up with a written annual report. We'd be happy to do that. I just think, you know, you have some concerns, Jack's not here. I throw that out as an option.
Let me just quickly go to Anna Elliott. And
Need the microphone, someone's help her out. Thank you.
Might I suggest that you share the emails from Jack Portopoulos to the Economic Development Committee, let them meet, and so that they can form a response to that, and then meet together to reconvene. So that's my recommendation.
Josh?
Becky has something to say.
yes, Becky?
They came here with a plan in mind. Maybe we should hear what they were planning, and then after that, decide what else we want to do.
If I heard Mr. Rasmussen, he said they were planning to respond or to hear what was going to be said and then perhaps formulate a response or go back to the table and have to come forward. But what I heard is that you were prepared to come here as a continuation of the, I use the term loosely, dialogues that have been happening with some of the challenges between particular members of the Board of Selectmen and the role and responsibility of the EDC. Am I articulating that correctly?
Our understanding was, I guess I need the microphone right from the...
Judy's got it right behind you.
Thank you, Judy. Our understanding was originally that this appointment with the Board of Selectmen was not about the annual report.
Right.
It was about that. So
correct.
that's sort of what we expected this meeting to be. We then learned last week that it was, you know, a report, our annual report. So didn't have time to prepare things in the meantime. I have to say that I don't think Anna Elliott's recommendation is a bad one. If we could know what, you know, Jack's concerns were, and rather than just kind of reacting, you know, off the cuff here, we could have a chance to respond to it.
Fortunately, I think we stray into open meeting territory.
We do.
If we don't present this now in an open meeting.
It was
Consider you
requested
first.
that I present it during an open meeting.
So I think what Anna suggested makes a lot of sense. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, Economic Development Committee, and again, I apologize for the confusion of the meeting, I would suggest, Josh, that you read Jack's message into the record, provide it to the Economic Development Committee, and I'd ask you guys not to react to it tonight until you've had a chance to meet, discuss it, and then we'll schedule a meeting sometime in October, November for you to come back and review it. Does that make sense?
I would say October, and come back and in conjunction, present your annual report first, and then comment on what Mr. Petropoulos' letter says. And I need you to understand that this is Jack's letter and no one else is on the board.
Russ has asked you.
Yeah.
I think in the interest of promoting economic development, the previous suggestion is a good one, and that will allow a quick resolution of our portion of the time and actually allow some economic development to occur with the liquor license for the Station Ave.
I get it. So, Allison?
I think though that this situation or these dialogues or discussions have already taken up such a tremendous amount of time for the entire EDC committee that to hear something and not respond to it tonight, I can't imagine that there's substantive new information in Jack's email, or to suggest another meeting in October. I mean, this is just prolonging what has already been kind of months of focus on things that have really very little to do with economic development. And that really, if we could kind of wrap this up tonight in terms of those discussions and dialogues and free the committee up to move on to economic development.
I get it, but
Can we let them have their discretion, they make their choice if they'd like to respond tonight, or if they want to wait, obviously we wouldn't force them
You
to.
can respond tonight, or you can wait, but certainly, you know, Jack said if we did not reschedule this meeting, he wants it read into the record, and I've got to honor a selectman's request of the chair.
Is it too late to reschedule this meeting?
Yeah, we began it. Okay, it's on the agenda, we started it, and it's, just try and bite your tongues if you don't like what you hear. Okay?
Mr.
look,
Chairman, I would object to reading Jack's letter tonight. We're unprepared, and you said that we couldn't comment on it?
No,
I
And that's just-
never said you couldn't comment on it.
my statement was, you have a choice. If you choose to comment on it tonight, that's your
But
prerogative.
we're being blindsided.
We all are.
We're being blindsided. I'm sorry.
I
It should
think,
not be read.
All right,
Mr.
it's as
Chairman,
simple as this.
let's
Then
reschedule the
I say that we cancel any further debate on this, reschedule this until after Selectman Petropoulos returns, and he can read his own comments into the record.
I don't
Fair
think
enough?
that
Fair.
makes
This-
it any less of a blind.
This agenda item is complete. Thank you for coming in. I'm sorry for any confusion this might have caused, but let's just move on with our agenda, and that way an empty chair doesn't have to,
On behalf of the board, I apologize for wasting your time tonight.
yes.
We want to resolve this, so whatever it takes.
Thank you.
I think a better solution would have been perhaps to read Jack's letter, let the EDC meet while we resolve the liquor license issue, and then.
Yeah, but I can't release this because this is this technically a public document?
that's a public document as soon as you mention it at this meeting.
Right. I mean,
Well, I'll be happy to give you the letter before we close, and you can all chew on it, okay?
Wait, but what about the rest of them?
I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
Forward a copy of
I'll
the
forward a
rest of
copy
the
to everyone.
selectmen. Okay? There is the letter. So, thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.
We look forward to your report, and we will take this issue up again, put it on for mid-September, please. Excuse me, October.
Thank you. Our meeting is posted, and I would like to ask Economic Development Committee to meet in the next conference room.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, I apologize for the confusion that I caused.
Well, we have 5 minutes before our scheduled public hearing, so...
Why don't we do some other business? I think Barry's thing is very quick on the mission statement. I think we can handle that right away. Barry,
Yeah.
you agree?
It's
That's
not
on
up to me
page,
usually.
that's on page 39 of your packet, agendas.
So, you want me to start, Mark?
Absolutely.
I won't bore the board if they've already read what was in the packet twice, actually.
Right.
So you got double doses of P-sisms. I don't know if it's been clear by now, but I really dislike 3-2 votes. They bother me intrinsically, especially when we're trying to establish frameworks for future discussions and future movement within the town strategically. And I was a little surprised that the mission statement went that way. And upon reflection the next day, I recognized that it might be wise to contact Ms. Manugian and ask her if she'd be willing to work with me on whatever slight wording challenges she had that would allow us to move forward with perhaps a more vehement board behind it. So with that in mind, I told Allison that nobody can make an objection without a solution, and she agreed. And she brought forth a very minor change. But before we start, well, actually, I'll do the whole thing, then I'll make the motions that are appropriate. Allison's modification so I'll read the original. The original statement that we had voted on 3-2 on July 24th was, the town of Groton strives to provide our residents, businesses, and visitors with quality municipal services delivered in an effective, professional manner, and to enhance the quality of life through collaborative planning, personal dedication, and community involvement. The slight change that Ms. Manugian came up with was, the town of Groton strives to provide our residents, businesses, and visitors with quality municipal services delivered in an effective, professional manner, period. Quality of life is enhanced through collaborative planning, personal dedication, and community involvement. I actually like the flow and read of this better. It breaks one of the original tenets I had of a mission statement should only be one sentence, but I'm willing to forego that tenet in the spirit of something that's even better, and because sometimes rules are made to be broken that way. So I respectfully would like to ask the board that we reconsider the vote on July 24th. I make a motion accordingly to reconsider the vote of the mission statement, of which I was on the positive winning side of that on July 24th.
I'll second. So the vote to reconsider is just
To
Reconsider.
just that, to reconsider
Put it
it,
back on the
then
table.
we will presumably
and
vote
another
on this as a
motion.
different
Correct.
one.
I hope so, right.
So, further discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm opposed.
Okay.
3-1.
The motion, we're now reconsidering. I would like to place a new motion on the table, amending the original to change the statement to, the town of Groton strives to provide our residents, businesses, and visitors with a quality municipal services delivered in an effective, professional manner. Quality of life is enhanced through collaborative planning, personal dedication, and community involvement. That's a motion, Paul.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
All right, now we have 4. Unanimous, if you will.
It's unanimous of the 4 that are here.
Thank you very much. That concludes the mission statement process. That is now a completed goal on the Board of Selectmen's thing, and we'll get that up on the website as soon as possible.
Thank you, Barry.
So you want that on the website?
Please, thank you. And thank you, Allison, for working with me to redo.
Mr. Chairman, the Groton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 11, 2017, at 7:45 p.m. in the Groton Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, first floor, 173 Main Street, Groton, Mass., to discuss and consider the transfer of a liquor license from Groton Center Station LLC to Station House Restaurant LLC, a change of manager on said license from Daniel L. McElroy to Michael J. Winthrop, and an alteration of premises to include the second floor of the building for the premises located at 20 Station Avenue. Public notices may be found on the Massachusetts Newspaper Publishers Association website. All interested parties are encouraged to attend. Groton Board of Selectmen. Mr. Chairman, I'd ask the board to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome.
Thanks. Mike, want to come on up? So we are delighted to be here this evening. All of you know me, but my name is Andrew McElroy. My folks are rehabilitating the old fire station just across the way, or on 20 Station Ave, into a farm-to-fork restaurant. Earlier, we had discussed a liquor license and went through that process, and the liquor license reflected the first floor of the building. And since then, We've rehabilitated the second floor. We're in the process of that. So the second floor will be open to dining as well. Everyone's going to love it. There's a lot of attention to detail in it, so it'll be fantastic. So we've gone through that process. We met with the planning board, and all of that is ironed out. So today we have 2 housekeeping issues, and the first is to amend the premises for that liquor license to reflect the second floor. And the second issue is kind of a technical issue. It's a structuring issue, and we're transferring the liquor license from one entity to another. Both of those are wholly owned by my family. And the issue is that one entity owns the real property at 20 Station Avenue, and the other is the operating company. So the operating company now will own the liquor license. So that, and this is Mike Winthrop. He's the guy. Yep. So he's going to be the restaurant manager. So when your food comes out perfectly, he's the guy you can thank. If you have any issues, I mean, he's the guy, hunt him down. But so he's got a little bit of his background. So he's been working in the restaurant biz for quite a while.
About 20 years.
About 20 years. I think 16 of those were at Cheesecake Factory.
Yes.
So he's very good at making sure that your food comes out hot and you get it just the way you like it, you're seated quickly, all of those things. So that's the reason we're here tonight.
Anything further to add to that?
I would overwhelmingly recommend that we approve this request.
Does the first floor and second floor include any patio automatically? The porch, the brick patio that's outside?
Yeah, so that was already included
In the first-
in
The
the
original
first.
Okay, I just wanted to,
Yeah,
I thought it
so-
might have been, I just wanted to double check. So
Yeah,
that's good.
so when you look at the application, the first floor is the same.
Yeah.
And it just adds floor 2 to it. So the liquor license does include that, but it's already been addressed.
So that conversation we had, several months ago, that panned out, huh?
How many total seats will you have between the 2 floors and the patio?
So the way we have it right now, if you add everything up, it's a little over 200 for the top and the bottom, and a little bit more outside on the patio, and that'll be seasonal. And you'd expect that people in this patio will be there when it's nice weather, when people are walking there. So that's roughly how it shakes out.
And the planning board signed off on the
Yes.
requisite amount of parking that's required for this?
That's right. So the planning board, we met with them, they signed off, and we also met with the sewer commission. So we have all the sewer capacity required there. I think everything else has been addressed as well.
Very good. Beck?
But when are you going to open?
Yeah, the most difficult question of all. We think mid-December. So we think we'll have everything ironed out by then. It's kind of bringing everything together. It kind of takes a while. Even figuring out the flooring, you'd be surprised, because if you want to have it just right, it kind of takes a while. And you're also kind of bringing people in and talking to them about what would be appropriate here, and what looks right, and what's period appropriate, and all those things. So mid-December.
Barry?
So Michael, what do you think about Groton?
It's pretty nice, there's a lot of potential there. There really is. There's a need for a restaurant like this.
There is.
Yeah.
I know that our colleagues here, over at Gibbet Hill, they have experienced quite an influx from other towns. Now, it used to be when I say Groton, I say Connecticut, right? And now when I say Groton, people says, "Oh, there's a great restaurant there," right? So
Oh, yeah, they're on the map.
I know that this is going to be another one of those to bring even more, put Groton more on the map, bring more visitors to Groton, and especially as things are changing and developing in other areas of the town, this will be a valuable asset to help serve and service those opportunities that we have and keep that revenue more centrally located. So I really appreciate you stepping up to this challenge.
Excited to be here.
And look forward to December 15th.
Yeah.
Hey, don't quote me on that.
And really, this place should be really a point of pride. So when people know the town, I think, yeah, it was an Oddfellows Hall, and then for over 70 years, it was a fire station. Actually, Earl Carr showing pictures of, I think, Town Hall served as a fire station for a while. He's got a picture of a fire truck coming out of the side of the building. I couldn't believe it. So, and now this is kind of the newest iteration, using that building again, rehabilitating it to serve the town in a new way. So, you know, many years down the road, there are people who are little kids right now who think, oh yeah, I remember doing birthday parties and all the rest over there, and that was a great spot. So,
Great.
yeah.
Well, sounds good. Before we take a vote, does the public have any comments?
Do I see my name?
Yeah, can you take the microphone though, please? You do. It's not for us,
It's for the people on
home.
TV so they can hear you.
Julie Andrews, 17 Station Avenue, as you well know. I'm sorry, what time do the licenses, what time does it close down? You know, when do you stop serving the...
Sure, we're planning on Sundays to close at 8 o'clock, Monday through Thursday to close at 9 o'clock, and then Friday and Saturday we close at 10 o'clock.
Oh, it was earlier than I thought. Okay, that was all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So within the liquor license, are we going to hold those hours?
I think, Andrew, help me out. What did we give you for the original license?
I actually don't recall.
I think we said it was till midnight or 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that was my recollection as well.
Yeah, so the question to you is, do we want to limit the hours to what you just represented? Do you want to have a blanket through the week till 10 o'clock?
I mean, if I were writing this, I would just say all lawful hours, because I know that the hours shift around in terms of lawful hours of the town. And
Different restaurants and different businesses have different hours, and depending on location. So when we grant licenses, they vary all over the place. Russell, you have something quick?
Yes, may I make a suggestion that...
Microphone.
There's one here, Russ. Here you go.
May I make the suggestion that your hours are probably not going to stop, the kitchen stop serving, there may be people that are still in attendance that are lingering on, so you may want to leave a cushion beyond their official hours to allow for the kitchen's closed, one last round type deal.
When we do a license transfer, is the ability to change the hours?
That's not on the docket for tonight, so I would say no. So I would leave it as is, and we can revisit it.
Well, we have to revisit it anyway by December 31st.
You're going to revisit it when you renew the liquor license, December 31st, so we can take it up then.
So since they're not
No, I can
open-
work with Andrew and figure out exactly what they want to have on there.
Yeah,
Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I personally would prefer to give you the discretion to run your business how the economic reality fits, and rather than us dictating the hours you can be open, but I'm a pretty economically open guy, so that's just me.
I think the rest of the board shares that.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
granted the
let's just
original license.
revisit that on the renewal. So
Yep.
we do our license renewals in or around the beginning to middle of December.
The day they open, we'll stop it.
And the bottom line is this license is only good through the end of the year, so we'll address the hours, and upon renewal, we'll be dealing with that at that junction, okay?
And that's an annual process.
That's an-
right?
every year,
They're probably
every year.
down the line.
Yes, absolutely. All right, did someone offer a motion?
I'll move that we grant the transfer of the liquor license from Groton Center Station LLC to Station House Restaurant LLC, and an alteration of premises to include the second floor of the building for the premises located at 20 Station Avenue.
And Michael Winthrop as manager.
Does that have to be on the license?
Yes.
Or
Yes,
with
absolutely.
Michael Winthrop as manager?
I'll second that with a question,
Yes.
once we're in discussion.
We are now arrived at discussion.
Just, not that anything's ever going to happen to Michael, but if the manager changes...
They have to come back and you have to vote a new manager.
a new
That's
manager.
state
Okay.
law.
All right, thank you.
And you have full tips training?
Yes.
Very good.
Michael's going to be manager for a long time, I can feel it.
I knew the answer is yes, but I'd like to hear you say it. so
Yes.
thank you. No, that's twice. So motions are made and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Good luck.
Congratulations.
Hope to see you by mid-December.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.
All right,
Mr.
moving
Chairman,
on.
if you can go to page 17 in your packets, I would like to use tonight to review the first draft of the 2017 Fall Town Meeting scheduled for October 23rd. This is not the public hearing. This is just to give me an opportunity to review what we received since the warrant closed on August 31st. give you a brief description, let you know what to expect.
Before you do get into that, and I appreciate you did that, the public hearing, is that next Monday?
It has been advertised, Josh, for 2 weeks. We advertised it before I knew about the quorum issue with...
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Are all three of you going to be here next Monday night?
You just said 2 weeks.
We advertised for 2 consecutive weeks.
I see.
So
I'm sorry, Becky, I didn't mean to confuse you.
Becky, Barry, and Allison, will you be here next Monday night?
Yes.
We'll be here with the Finance Committee in joint session.
If you need me to call in, let me know.
Okay, I'll do that. So, Mr. Chairman, Article...
Mark,
Yes.
if you'll hold on just one moment. I've been notified that the chair of the EDC, and this is not a scheduled time limit, so we can have an opportunity to fit them in. Would like to
No.
No?
We said that if we gave them the email, we would continue this at a later point rather than my reading. So if your intention is to respond to the email that you read in any way, we're done with this agenda item, okay? I think we made that clear.
That's the point, to be done with the agenda item.
We are done with the agenda item.
And we don't have to revisit it for the meeting to discuss it.
You need to come back in with your annual report, was my understanding.
Well,
And if Mr. Petropoulos at such point wants to read his email, he can do so at that point. Okay?
That's fine.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Article 1 on the warrant is a citizen's petition received from 10 registered voters in Groton that basically asked to revisit the All Our Welcome markers that were approved at the 2017 Springtown meeting, and we would be changing All Our Welcome to Town of Groton Welcome Town Meeting 2017.
So I have a question
Yep.
as someone who's new to this.
Yep.
What exactly is our discussion for tonight?
If you have questions, I'm going to give you information on the article, so let you know what they're about. If you want to ask me questions about it, great. The proponents are not going to speak to their article tonight. That'll be done during the public hearing next Monday. But I'm going to try to give you as much information as I have now, so that you'll understand what the purpose of the articles are.
And then the next step would be during the public hearing, if you all want to take positions during the
Right.
public hearing on any article that you understand you can defer it to town meeting, or you can defer it to a subsequent meeting after next.
Correct.
Okay?
So I have 2 questions.
Please.
My first question has to do with discussing the order of articles.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure that we have a discussion. And
That we should do tonight, Becky.
yes, and as part of that discussion, we have 2 citizens petition articles. My impression is that in the past, those have always been at the end of the agenda,
I can answer the question if you'd like me to.
okay?
It is usually the board's tradition, or my tradition, when I put the articles forward, that citizens petitions go at the end of the warrant. I was requested by Selectman Deegan to put this particular issue at the beginning of the warrant to get it out of the way early in the meeting. If the board wants to move it to the end, please direct me to do so, and I will.
And the reason that I asked is that I've seen waning attendance during town meeting as the meetings grind on. And that at citizens petitions, especially if it goes to multiple nights, and it can be late at night, that you won't have many individuals in the crowd. And it's very easy with a small town meeting to stack a room one way or another. And the highest level of attendance is at the beginning of the meeting. And therefore, I felt that it would be appropriate to have this issue, because it has been a hot button topic on both sides at the beginning, when you have as many people there as possible to discuss the article in full.
Okay, I'm going to reserve I'm still thinking about that. I just wanted to ask about it.
No, good question. I'm glad you asked it, Becky.
Around
My
that-
other, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Around that issue, are the remainder of the articles in the order they're in for a specific reason?
I have a
or-
method to my madness
Okay.
on why I
Now it becomes
recommended
clear to
them.
us?
Yep, I will make it. Would you like me to tell you now, or do you want me to answer Becky's other question?
I have another question
Yeah.
about this particular article. The wording of the summary, who wrote that?
Everything here was submitted with the citizens petition. I did not change the wording of anything that you have here.
Okay.
That was the article that was submitted and the summary that they provided with their article. I don't touch, I don't edit, I don't do anything to what they submit. That's as is.
I don't believe that that is the a summary that we should publicize. I think it should be changed.
We don't.
We don't have the right to change it. It's a
Not
citizen's
our
petition.
article.
It's not our article. We have to put it in there like that.
Our role, according to the charter, right now, is to receive the citizen petition into the warrant and allow it to proceed to this town meeting. We have no ability to modify, alter, reject, or even approve this article. It is simply our job to make sure that it appears on the warrant.
Including the summary statement?
We must let it ride as it is. This is.
That's in the charter.
This is a citizens to citizens.
Actually, that part, Becky, that's state law.
Yeah.
You have to accept the citizen's petition as submitted with their summary. So we cannot change that wording.
So when, are we allowed to add another statement?
You can make a motion to amend during the article discussion at town meeting by submitting it in writing to the moderator to be heard
Well,
by.
hold on,
No,
hold on.
are we allowed to?
I'm asking, I think I know what you're asking, Becky, and the answer to that is if the Board of Selectmen wants to put in a summary to rebut or question or talk about that, you have every right to submit a second summary, and we can put that in the warrant. It's your warrant. You can absolutely do that. I think that's what you're asking, right?
Yes, I mean, my concern is that I have always, I think, assumed that that summary was written by, I don't know, the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, and
All the other ones are usually written by me or the proponent, but when it comes to a citizen's
Right.
petition, we can't change it.
okay.
The summary under Article 21, that other citizen's
So-
petition, that was written by that proponent.
So I think we should think about how, or if we want to say something that makes it clear that that statement is not coming out of the Board of Selectmen or out of the government, that this statement was written by the proponents of the article.
I'd support
We
that.
can add a note.
I would support that.
We can absolutely add a note.
Right. And maybe even with a reference to as required under the state law, we have publicized this summary that was written by the proponents. You know, on ballot questions, there's a yes and a no argument that gets printed. So whatever leeway we have, we might want to think about that.
Well, the leeway we have is whether to support or not support when we take positions, and then to...
But also to print something that people read ahead of time.
I would have no problem with your idea about putting underneath the summary a note that this is a citizen's petition, that the wording was submitted by the citizens
Right.
and not sponsored by any town department, and
Yeah, I think it's going to be
and that
important
we
to do
can't
that.
change it subject to the requirements of state law.
Right.
So Becky, what I can-
Those
if you give me an
statements-
opportunity to put some caveat underneath that for you to look at next week,
Sure.
I'll bring it forward.
The challenge I have, it's each one of those statements on their face articulates an idea, since it's never been done before in any other article, that there is disagreement, and to me, it seems to interfere in the people's process. And I'm a very, very, very strong proponent for the people being able to say what they want to say and to whom they want to say it at a town meeting, whether I agree with it or not. As a Board of Select member, it's not my place to step in and articulate whether or not the statement of summary is what the board says or not the board says. Now, I could see we make that statement of policy on every citizen petition, where every citizen petition had to have the same statement behind it to be completely policy oriented, you know, like you would with any employee policy. It applies to everybody or nobody. So I'm okay with something done across the board, and it becomes du jour here on out, that we're going to be doing this every time we get a citizen petition, that the Board of Selectmen, under state law, does not modify, alter.
That this was submitted by the
Well, I
proponents. I think that's a good idea because.
Basically, yeah, we should do that. Basically, what I was going to say is that this summary was submitted as part of the petition and not subject to amendment by the Board of Selectmen. something like that.
And that has to be on every citizen's petition.
And we put it on Article 21.
Right.
I
In
agree,
fact-
Barry,
And
100%.
from now on,
Yeah, and in fact, thinking back to the spring, the citizens one, there might have been more, but there was a lot of confusion about summary statement that was written on a citizens petition article that people.
On the seal.
On the seal.
Yeah.
That people thought had come out of our office.
I think a clarification, Becky, is important. I agree with you.
So, and Barry, I'm totally fine with it happening and should happen. I think anytime there's a citizens petition to make it clear that that's where that originated.
Yep.
fair enough. Allison had a question, and Connie had a question.
No, I was gonna suggest exactly that we have this on every citizen's petition.
Great.
I'm going to talk, if it's all right with the board, I'm going to talk to town council and say, hey,
Yeah.
give me some good language that's legal and
Right.
fits this. So that's what I'm going to do.
But I think it's
Absolutely.
important that it also be understandable.
I agree.
I got your point.
Totally agree.
Will you make that clear?
Yes, I'll say, David, dumb it down.
Thank you. Connie Sartini.
Well, actually, my suggestion was the same, although I wonder if you plan to vote on that as part of the procedure this evening. That you will always include that statement.
Well,
I think until they see the statement,
I
I'd wait
would
till next
ask
week.
that
Let's
you
have the
add it, I
statement.
would ask that you add it to next week's agenda.
Yep.
If you're going to add that and then adopt it as a policy for all future warrants.
Sure.
So you can amend your procedures and policies again.
Thank you, perfect.
We just
Thank
made
you.
Allison's week.
I just don't want to do it tonight because it's not on the agenda.
That's fine.
all.
No, I
Okay.
certainly.
To answer Allison's question, is there a method to the madness of the, okay. The way I put this warrant together, if we go back to the listing of the article, there were several articles that were submitted with money requests, some of which require free cash transfers, some of which require raise and appropriation, which I'll talk about tonight when we get to it. So I tried to put the articles, the daily business out of the way, routine
Right.
business rather, out of the way first, capital articles next, and then you'll see on Article 13, offset the tax rate. I moved that down this year to Article 13 because I wanted the board to go through all of the money articles, see what the free cash certification is, which we should get in the next week or so. And then if there's anything left, if you wanted to put it into the, to offsetting the tax rate, you'd be able to do that based on the articles. And then after that, I put other business, bylaws, citizen petition. That's how I did the order. This is typical of the order that we
Right.
usually follow.
So tonight, will we get at least estimated numbers?
I'm going to give you numbers.
And then it seemed like as I read through them, some of the articles were even vague as to the funding mechanism. Does that get refined?
I'm going to tell you that tonight as well. I have
This
a
is,
wealth of
this is,
information.
as Mark pointed out, the first draft. This is the walkthrough. And then when you get to your public hearing, you have to have those numbers and the funding mechanisms contained. So this also gives us the opportunity that if we don't like what Mark's going to propose, speak up.
Tell them otherwise.
No, to say, look, go get the money somewhere else. Go find a different way to fund it,
Go get the money.
No, I don't.
No, I got you.
You
No, I
follow what
got
I'm
you.
saying.
Hey, Mark, I got $1 for you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Allison?
does.
Okay.
And that's what I was hoping the answer was.
Yep. Article 2, prior year bills. Right now, this is a standard routine article that we put on. As of today, there are no unpaid bills, but we leave it on here just in case. Article 3, amend the fiscal year 2018 town operating budget. What we ordinarily do is we put this on prior to setting the tax rate, just in case there are any budget amendments that need to take place. I know of a couple that we may want to take up now, and I'm going to look to the board for direction, or we may want to wait until the spring to finalize it. For example, the board authorized me to hire somebody to do clerical work for the various boards. There's no appropriation for that. Now, I can pay it out of current funds, see what the total cost is, deal with it at the spring, or I can give you an estimate and take it at this town meeting. I was estimating that cost to be about $9,000. We can do it now, or we can wait until the spring and adjust the budget then. The only difference is, why I like to do it here is anything that's going to be a permanent funded issue that's going to be in future operating budgets, I want to put it in so that when we create next year's operating budget, I'm not artificially inflating the budget. And somebody says to me, why is there a 30% increase in selectmen expenses? I hope that makes sense. So the board needs, you don't have to answer that tonight, we'll talk about that in the public hearing. The board needs to answer that. In addition to that, I know I'm gonna have a shortfall in police wages. I don't think I need to explain why. So there are a couple of
Well, you
issues.
might not need to explain why to us, but the public might want to know why one more time.
So
Barry?
due to this incident that happened on Friday, I don't know if every, but a majority of the department came in to cover, and what I understand, they were quite busy all weekend long, and thus I would expect that we would see some overtime hours and some other things that are completely unexpected and unaccounted for in our normal budgeting procedures.
Yeah, so that-
Plus, we also have
A disability.
Yeah.
issue and a couple other things to compound this, so
Those are the two major.
I was waiting, I was anticipating that we might see this, and
We could wait till the spring.
look forward to
How much are we
seeing it.
looking at as a shortfall right now?
Hard to say, Josh, you know, I haven't seen the payroll slips from this weekend.
Five
so I don't know.
figures?
I don't think that much. No, probably, yeah, I thought you said 6 figures. 5 figures
No,
probably.
I didn't say 6 figures.
Going on your idea that, you know, if it's a permanent thing, it's gonna be in the budget next year, we can put maybe one in the fall, but if it's something that is a one-off and a special event, it should be in the spring. What I might recommend, and this is purely my idea, is put the overtime for the police wages in the spring.
Yep.
And perhaps the FinCom, you know, may want to do a reserve, whatever, that's their prerogative in the meantime versus the fall. And I agree with you on on the other one, which we voted in as something that we'd like to do, that is a permanent budgeted item.
Yep.
And perhaps that should be on the fall so that it does fall into the thing. But, you know, the one-time event, and I'm saying that specifically because I want it to be a one-time event,
You and me both.
maybe should be a spring item.
Yep.
And I think you should be going to the reserve fund for a reserve fund transfer for this, because I don't want to see you transfer funds into the department line item for wages and/or overtime and have it become a permanent increase.
Well, that's why you wait till the spring. I agree.
So whichever way.
Yep.
If you need money for the short term, you've got it, but I would definitely like to see you put that one on.
My feeling is if there's anything in here that requires permanent funding, such as the clerical, plus when we moved Fran down to the town clerk's office, she makes $1 more an hour than the previous person that was in there. So even though she's working less hours, she's making the same pay. There's an added cost there, so there's something there that we want to put in as well. So I'll have a list for you next week that shows, might be 2 or 3 things, not a lot of money, that we would adjust the budget for at this town meeting, and then we'll take care of those types of things at the spring. But I want to follow up on something Barry said. I was going to say this earlier, Josh, when you made the statement at the beginning of the meeting. You know, Friday night, Barry and I were there during the event, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the professionalism of our police department and our fire department is second to none. And given an incident that they had never dealt with before, they were more than exemplary. And I've never been prouder. And Barry reminded me of something today. The district attorney, before we went out for the press conference that she had at 11 o'clock, took Barry and I aside and said, you should be really proud of your police department. And I couldn't agree with the DA more. So I just wanted to get that into the record tonight for the board.
No, that's important to point out, and certainly we all know how good both departments are, but when you have a tragedy like that and they deal with it as effectively as they did, given the challenges ahead of them, so hats off to all public safety here in town.
Article 4 is a transfer within the Sewer Enterprise Fund. I haven't gotten the exact number from them, but it has to do with the Pepper Wastewater Treatment Plant Upgrade Engineering Services. I think it's in the $50,000 range, but I'll have an exact number from Tom Orcutt at next week's public hearing.
This isn't on the ratepayer?
It is. It's transfer. It's within the
Oh,
transfer of the
within
sewer
the
fund.
enterprise, okay, within the fund.
Within the fund.
Right.
Transfer money to the cap stabilization fund. We need to have, according to the Selectmen's financial policies, 1.5% of the total operating budget. There's a current balance of $118,000. To get it to 1.5%, we need to transfer in $425,000. So that'll be a free cash transfer of $425,000 to get it to 1.5%.
For the stabilization fund.
Yeah.
So we jumped.
No, the capital stabilization fund. I'm sorry if I misspoke. Capital stabilization fund has a balance of $118,000.
Can you explain in case someone didn't know, when one would utilize those funds vis-a-vis the other?
The capital stabilization fund is what we use to fund the capital budget at the Springtown meeting. And we
So when we
replenish
get
it
a
with free cash in
program,
the fall.
when we have programmed police cruiser replacements, when we have programmed dump trucks, that's within the capital plan. Anything that's programmed within the capital plan that's approved is funded through the cap stabilization.
Yep.
And then the stabilization fund?
Is depleted and then replenished
No,
typically
no,
through.
she's talking about the
No, no,
second.
no.
Oh, I'm
The second article, the stabilization fund is our rainy
Rainy
day
day.
account, and our policy says that we keep a balance of 5% in there. Right now, there's a balance of 1.79 million in that fund, and to get it to 5%, we need to transfer $10,000 into it. Now, that stabilization fund is crucial, and it's one of the main reasons we have a AAA bond rating. I don't mess around with the stabilization fund.
And where does, just for my own education, because obviously I'm having trouble getting up to speed here.
Yep.
Where does free cash?
Free cash is what we use to fund both of those accounts.
So at the end of a year, we have potentially funds left over either from increased revenue or
Yep.
decreased spending.
Yep.
Those go kind of automatically into?
No. What happens is at the end of the year, the town accountant closes the books.
Yes.
She balances cash, she pays all the expenditures, and she does what is called a cash balance sheet.
Understood.
On that cash balance sheet, it has all the town's accounts, previous free cash, everything in there, and that gets sent into the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue looks at that, there's a formula that they look at, and then they determine that the town has X amount of dollars in excess revenue. It's called the excess and deficiency fund, we call it free
Okay.
cash. That is what gets certified. We will have that certification in the next couple of, similar, you got the same thing with the Groton
That's what
Industrial School Committee. We will have that in the next couple of weeks. And I'll be able to tell you what that number
And
is,
then
Okay.
we decide what we want to.
how that gets spent.
Yeah.
It has been our tradition to use the free cash certification to fund the cap stabilization fund and the stabilization fund at the fall town meeting. We have done it that way for the 9 years I've been here and the previous 9 years before I got here.
And Allison, there's a hurdle that creates, by the way. It makes it more difficult to actually spend the money. Free cash can be transferred into these funds with a majority vote, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Whereas you cannot transfer money out of a stabilization fund without a 2/3 majority at town meeting.
Correct.
So we're actually creating a higher bar of spending by pre-funding the capital state accounts with free cash. And then during the spring town meeting, the town gets to decide, it has to be by a 2/3 vote, whether or not to expend that money on capital projects.
Okay. And if the free cash exceeds what we would transfer into either stabilization or capital stabilization, what other?
I have a bunch of ideas that you're gonna hear
So
about in a minute.
it can go to projects, right?
It can be used to fund any of the spending that is requested within the warrant.
It can be kept.
It can be kept as free cash.
It can be kept, it can be used to offset the tax rate, it can be used to satisfy warrant articles in fall, it can be used to satisfy warrant articles in the spring, which is by keeping it
Right.
fall, right? So you can let your free cash, your E&D technically keep accruing for billions and billions of dollars, right? But please don't quote me that we have billions and billions of dollars in there. So it's, yes,
The one thing that we will never use free cash for is to balance the operating budget. I don't care what the balance in there, we will never use one-time revenue sources to balance operating expenses. That's the one thing we've always lived on and will continue to live on,
you could use it to pay down a bond
which we
early.
did last year.
Yes,
You can
we
use it for
certainly
lots,
did.
so it is literally a discretionary item you can use for anything that's not a repeatable, I was about to say repeatable offense.
Okay. And it can roll from year to year, so. if that's-
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. Yes, if you don't spend it, you don't lose it.
Sounds good.
How about that?
It's like understanding
For example,
technology.
at our free cash balance that we get certified this year, we left 200,000 sitting there. So whatever gets certified this year will be on top of that 200,000.
Okay, thank you.
Angela, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Can you use the
Microphone, please.
microphone, please?
It's all good.
Does free cash have to have a cap? Can you only maintain so much in there that you can roll over from year to
No.
year? So it's an infinite amount? So,
Correct.
Okay, all right. Not
Billions
have an
and
infinite
billions.
amount, but I
I wish, Angela, we had.
I know, I understand, so do I. I'll give that back.
So, Allison,
Yeah.
does that answer what you asked?
Yes,
I hope I
it does. Thank
was
you.
able to
Yeah.
clarify that.
And that was probably good for everyone at home.
Yeah, it was a good explanation. I'm
Well,
glad we had
I'll
the
probably
discussion.
need it again next week.
I will give it again next week. Article 7 is the senior center design. That article, we anticipate the number being in the $400,000 price tag. However, we have put out a request for proposal, and we are expecting them on September 20th. We will negotiate a price, and I'll have an exact amount for you prior to town meeting. We'll have a contract in place. And then my proposed funding mechanism under here was $175,000 comes from the capital projects receipts reserved. That comes from the sale of the Tarbell School and the former fire station. And then whatever the extra amount is, say $225,000, that would come from free cash. Yes, Becky?
I have a question on the wording of this
Yep.
article. It doesn't seem to make sense to me when it says, the second to the last line there, it says it's for the design, comma, or design and construction bidding,
Yep.
comma. What does that mean?
The design, you can just spend the money, design it, and not do anything with it. Or you
Right.
can design it and have them do the documents to allow us to put it out to bid.
Bid docs.
So you get the
So
bid
it's
docs.
bidding documents, it's not construction bidding, or it's
That's what
That's
bidding
what it's called.
documents are, construction bidding.
construction bidding means document.
Correct.
You don't think it should say design and construction bidding documents?
I can add that word if it makes you happy. I'm not trying to be flip.
Certainly makes more sense
There's
grammatically.
no problem putting the word
No,
documents.
you can do that.
I understand it as implied because I read stuff like this a lot. but
Well, I read
your
it
point-
too, but I just, as I read it this time, I thought, it seems like it's missing the word documents. And again, in the summary,
The reason, can I just say why it doesn't say documents?
Yeah.
Because there's more to construction bidding than just documents. There's the actual putting it out to bid, paying for the advertising. It's a big caveat of things. So when I write it that way,
How about
That's why
construction
we do it.
bidding process?
we could add the word, I'd be more comfortable with process than documents.
okay, that process sounds good.
Process.
And then in the summary where it says, the article will allow the town to secure design and bid specific documents. Should there be, do you mean bid specific, like hyphenated?
I did not write this, the senior center building committee did.
Allison, does it make sense to you the way it's written? This article will allow the town to secure design and bid specific documents that will
Yes.
determine.
So I read it as bid-specific documents rather than bid as a verb.
Right, so bid, I think
Read
it
it
should
as-
be hyphenated to say
Right.
bid specific. That's what I thought too.
Yeah. So I have a question on this too, Mark, and I
Please.
don't know. Prior to the town meeting, will there be some understanding from the committee as to what they are looking to
Absolutely,
design?
yes. As a matter of fact, we held a pre-bid conference last Wednesday, and we talked specifically, we want the architect, whoever bids on this, to be able to come in and work with the senior center building committee to determine whether or not, and we want this as part of their proposal, whether or not we should renovate or construct new at that site. So they would bring forward that recommendation to the selectmen and town meeting.
Okay, but has the senior center design committee, or has that group refined, at least in their own minds, the needs versus the wants list? And is that information that would go to a successful bidder prior
Yeah,
to
we
design,
gave them the programming and the anticipated square footage for the building last week.
You gave it to who?
The people who came to the pre-bid conference, the architects and engineers that came to the pre-bid conference.
And is that something that we've seen? Or will we see it?
I think you'll see it as part of the presentation that they make when they come in. We'll talk to them next week.
At the hearing?
That's their valley work, so to speak. is
And
a
I
structure.
don't have a good grasp, obviously.
They'll be
of
here
the
next
process,
week. They'll be here
so-
next week to answer that question.
Okay.
I'm not
Please.
sure if you're in this talking, I just continue to have a concern that the decision, or that I would like our local people to have at least expressed a clear preference for renovation of the building, because I think the minute that, but I guess I have a fear that an architect is always going to come in and say it's better to build new.
And grant.
And then the minute that then we're, okay, we're going to build new, then it's, well, we're only going to do this one time, so we're going to add in every.
That is not the mindset of the Senior Center Building Committee. They understand I can tell you from attending their meetings, they understand the financial implications, and they want a successful project. They're not going to come in with a Taj Mahal. I promise you that.
All set?
Yep. Article 8, this is something that I proposed. I sent this out to the board previously. I sent it to the Groton Dunstable Regional School Committee chairman as well. I would assume you shared it with the committee. So this is something that I'm proposing, and what I would like to do, the school submitted a capital plan and approved the capital plan last year. And it's a good plan. They did a lot of research on it. They put forth, I think it's for the next 10 years, in which they outline their needs. Obviously, there's a lot of money that needs to come forward on how to fund that. My fear is that all of a sudden, if a need comes up and we're not prepared to pay for it financially, it hurts the town of Groton. I also would imagine that the town of Dunstable isn't ready to pay their share of certain things as part of that process, knowing what has happened in the past. So I want to create a town of Groton capital stabilization fund for the Groton Dunstable Regional School District. And I want to put money in there and start salting money away so that when Dunstable's ready to go, Groton's ready to go, and we can fund the projects as they come available. I don't know how much money we can put in there. I won't have a recommendation until we get our free cash certification and I know where everything else goes. But I think this is important, and I really want to see it happen.
Or you could take the money you're salting away in OPEB and put it in this instead.
So I'm going to hope when we get that free cash certification, we can fund this. I don't know, does the school committee have an opinion on this?
Hi. Of course we do.
I'd be shocked if you didn't. This is when you say, Mark, you're brilliant, thank you so much.
You are brilliant. Thank you very much. I did want to share that this is the topic we're going to be speaking to at the summit meeting on Wednesday. Dunstable will actually also be looking into the same exact sort of stabilization fund for their town as well. So, but I also did want to mention, I know in years past, there's been a thought that, you know, Dunstable may not approve where Groton will automatically approve. I just want to remind everyone, there was an override that we did not pass and they did. So I think that we can't be sure who's going to pass what. I guess it all depends on what it is. And yes, and absolutely, and we need to be ready. So, and I appreciate that.
Yes, Becky.
Well, I guess we're going to talk more at the summit. I was under the impression that Groton had already done this.
We did do this in
Groton
terms
Dunstable.
of Groton Dunstable.
No, actually, no, this is two different things.
Right, so let me,
If you want.
so there was a town meeting initiative to have a combined Groton, to allow the school district to create a stabilization fund.
Okay.
That requires both towns to do this. This idea allows Groton to establish its own fund in the, to save capital money in advance or over time, so that when we get those, if we do get a jump or, you know, in requests from the school district based on their budget year after year, instead of having to pull it out of our operating budget and offset there, we're able to use this fund to pay for those capital expenses, and we can use that as a funding mechanism at a spring town meeting. So by funding this in the fall, much the same way we do our capitalization stable fund, the Groton capitalization fund, we're in a position to ease any spikes that might happen as a result of the natural appearance of capital projects that are planned for. And if you look at it, the average, as we see, is about 400, but some years it might be much higher and some years it might be lower, so you can't do the average. So ideally, we would we kind of can see what they're going to do. Ideally, we'd be putting in the money in advance, understanding what the next year's might be without holding their feet to the fire is what it's going to be. And that allows us to not challenge our 2.5 operating.
So if it's for capital stabilization, it could not be spent on the annual assessment to the town.
Correct.
It could only be spent on capital expenses.
Well, a stabilization
it
fund can be spent
it
on
could.
anything the town meeting wants to spend it on. It could be spent on operating expenses.
It could.
Sure it
But
could.
I don't wanna do that.
It would require a 2/3 vote of our town meeting to draw down money out of the cap stabilization fund
That's right.
specific
You
to
can
the
do
schools,
anything you want.
regardless if it's for HVAC units, a telephone system, whatever they may propose as capital. Let's just say that there was a huge spike in student population that caused the assessment to go out of whack. Theoretically, you could go tap this fund. Is that not correct?
You could, but then it'd go against our,
Best management practices?
correct.
So.
We would never recommend that.
So there is a slight potential downside to this, that we basically have saved money in this account, and then we're faced with a large
But we
increase
would
in the
not
assessment.
necessarily.
But we would never use free cash, Becky, to balance their request. If they came in and said they need this
So the
big job.
source of the money would never have been used for that.
Correct. We wouldn't have used it for
Right, okay.
that anyway.
And keep in mind, there's things in that budget which are considered capital costs
Right,
that are part of an operating assessment. So there's some flexibility there, because the way their budget has to come to us, and I only know this because of the RAC and working on regional agreement, there are ways the budget has to come. And many of those items that are capital are assessed. So it is possible for us to say, that's an assessed capital item, we therefore can offset it. Now,
So then do we-
wouldn't, but there is some possibilities to do.
well, except that do we tie our hands because of the 2/3 vote requirement then?
Not when it comes to capital. It's the same,
Even if it's something that's...
Well, if it was within their operating assessment under small capital included within their budget, that would be a majority vote.
Correct.
However, it was specific request for capital that wasn't within their budget, then that would require a 2/3 vote.
Correct. And Becky, if you look at the way we do our capital budget, and I would hope the schools would follow the same process, we put forward a separate article and we list each, 70,000 for cruisers,
Right.
100,000 for a dump truck, whatever it is. I would expect them to say 70,000 for infrastructure, 50,000 for HVAC,
Right.
and then the town would vote that. Within their operating budget this year, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, about $300,000 of our assessment this year, there was about $300,000 worth of capital expenditures, which included some HVAC repairs and the Flow Road parking lot. That was passed by majority vote at the town meeting. I would assume routine maintenance would stay in their operating budget that way. Am I wrong?
Yes, actually, we're working on the budget guidance now, and thus far, we've discussed pretty extensively, and we're supposed to vote on it on September 20th. And one of the discussions, which didn't get a whole lot of pushback, was we would like a separate operations budget from a capital budget. That way it's two separate, clean cut, and we are following the capital plan, which means, I understand you guys include a higher amount. Our cap is going to start at 5,000 because of the fact that Dunstable is also involved, not just Groton, and a couple 5,000 here, there, and there adds up really fast for them, so we have to consider that.
Makes sense.
So I wanted to address Becky's concern is that we're creating a higher bar to just get the school funded. Historically, what I've seen at town meeting is that because the money's already been funded into the account and they realize it's not going to go against the tax assessments and budget, town meeting tends to be fairly approving of capital expenditure items. In fact, even controversial ones that
Like
we've
the
had in
country
town, like many different things tend to, so even that high bar, I recognize, and I have the same concern. I don't want to make it harder for the schools to get the money that we want to make sure they get, and based on that, but I think that this mechanism allows us to fund using free cash and then apply that money to the schools accordingly.
Right.
And it actually creates a better, if you will, value to the taxpayer in the long run.
I agree 100%.
Yes.
So as I read through this, I had the same kind of thought process that Becky did, I think, where it was, didn't we do this a couple years ago? And then as I read it again, it started to make sense. So I'm wondering if we can make it even clearer so that it would potentially say, like, to see if the town will vote to create a Town of Groton held capital stabilization.
Well, that's what I tried to do by the title, Town of Groton Capital Stabilization Fund for the Groton-Dunstable Regional School District. You don't think that's clear?
I don't, because so to me, down to in the summary, if it said, you know, that the school committee now has a long-range capital plan, and that, well, the town of Groton approved several years ago development of the cap stabilization fund for the district to hold, that because the district can't utilize that tool right now, that we would like to create this.
Do you want to draft up?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Please do. Whatever you want to put in there.
And I like that analysis, Allison. I think it's valid, and it gives people, because you're right, if you guys both got confused, then perhaps a lot of other people will, and let's clarify that this is Groton's attempt, because we voted for it once, to establish it on the Groton side and then not be bound.
The intent here, and I've had a lot of conversations with Barry and Bud and Gary Green about this, is to make sure that we are ready and we have money set aside to help the schools when they're ready. The school committee spent a lot of time and effort creating that capital plan. We need to be able to fund that capital.
Which we asked for many years, and so now that they've done it, we have to do our side and follow through with our corner.
Now, speaking of school capital.
Did you still have more?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. It kind of goes between your points, just so that you understand. So what has been part of the discussion is that, especially for Dunstable, they seem to be, although not decided yet, seems to be more open to having set up something for the municipal side equivalent to this versus funding the district one because of this hard to determine with rolling enrollment averages when that money, if it was to go in there, each town puts in money and then it rolls over, there really is a very difficult way to track that money being applicable to
that's a good point. I get that. That's
and
cool.
so this seems to make them feel more comfortable, although like I said, they're still talking and the two reps are meeting with their municipal side. And so we want to thank you because I think this helps resolve that issue if it does get voted and set up. So I just wanted to say that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's good insight.
Article 9 is a request for funding to fund Groton's share for the school district's phone system and internet infrastructure upgrades. I don't know what that number is, and I don't know how much our share is and what Dunstable's share is. Do you guys have that number?
It's in your summary.
I provided
Is
it.
it?
Yep.
No, I'm sorry, it's in the summary. I should have read that.
Well, thank you for reading the summary.
$346,860 is Groton's share.
So, is Dunstable going to fund that this year?
Well, let me check my 8-ball. Yes, they are going to fund it this year. I'm confident that they will. I think that it's very important for our schools, both academically and from a safety perspective. The information that you see here from the educational perspective, I don't think that's a surprise. That's been discussed over and over again. But the other information, I started thinking about how it can affect our schools and our students in other ways. So I did reach out to the officer who responded when we had that bomb threat. And I did ask them, how did it affect, or at all, what did it affect the response time or anything? And what you see in the explanation is basically what it is. If it was not for some meticulous notes being taken by the person who received that phone call, we would not have had any idea that would have been tied to an FBI investigation because we couldn't tell it was a robocall. If we couldn't tell it was a robocall and you couldn't tie it into that investigation, it does hinder the prosecution. So little things like that, which I don't consider, actually, I should take that back. Huge things like that, when we're talking about the safety of our kids, this is in one of the many reasons why we feel it's absolutely suitable for fall town meeting. We get one chance to do it in May if we were to wait, and now it's a whole nother year that we have to put our children in possible harm's way if another crisis does happen, in addition to putting them again behind the 8-ball educationally. It's just not worth it.
What's Dunstable's share?
I believe it's just under 200.
Okay.
It's 450 total. So.
Okay.
What's your funding mechanism?
If we're going to fund this, I wrote the article to allow us to borrow if necessary, but It depends on what our free cash certification is. If we have enough in free cash to do it, on top of everything else we're doing, then I would prefer, it's a one-time cost, I don't want to bond it. So it depends, Josh, on the free cash certification. If I can do it out of free cash, that's going to be my recommendation.
And where did the district get this number from?
The capital plan calls for 450, and they actually have received bids out in the past when they did the capital fund. So that is the figure that is stated in our capital plan.
I would imagine something
All
like
the
this,
details is there.
you can get off the state bid list too for this kind of work, right?
Yeah, it basically, an actual bid will go out, but where it was budgeted in that, if it happens to go over that, then there would be, our own contingency would have to cover the difference. So it would be one of those scenarios, but they are very confident in regards to the estimate.
Mike Knight went through all the numbers again. They all went through the numbers again in the spring, the late spring, early summer, and so they're pretty confident in the number.
More importantly, I'd like to add, the E-rate is not going to be offered forever, and we'd like to take advantage of it while we can. That is a huge amount of savings, almost 50% in regards to it.
Really?
And there has been discussions, no vote in regards to that, but the thought process was if the E-rate comes back, and then we have that refund, that can then be turned back around towards capital expenses to offset future capital expenses. So we could certainly wait till May, next May, the year, and maybe the E-rate will be there, maybe it won't be. Again, just adding to that gamble, something I don't want to.
My feeling is it's a warrant article. If we have the funding available to put it forward, let's put it forward now. Doesn't mean it has to get spent until Dunstable does it. We can always rescind the vote later.
Absolutely, it would not be funded unless Dunstable passed
Correct.
it at all.
Yeah.
However, if Dunstable does happen to choose to put something up in fall town meeting and it doesn't get past it, it's going to go back up in May. So.
Understood.
Very good.
Becky, I think had a question, Josh.
Yes,
So did
Becky.
Allison.
2 points. One is I totally support the getting the caller ID. However, my observation is that we're always, behind, the honest people are always behind the crooks. And there was a discussion on the listserv within the last few months about people, and I know it's happened to me, getting robocalls that actually show legitimate Groton phone numbers as where they're originating, sometimes showing your own phone number
Yeah,
is where it is originating. And I know other people are getting these because then I've occasionally had people call me and say, I just got a call from this number. And I said, well, I didn't make that call. So caller ID is not always going to identify.
No, it would identify that it was a robocall. Not who made the call, but the fact that it was a robocall because the numbers are tied in.
On my caller ID, there's no way that
I can only share with you what the officer told me.
Right, I hope that they can get more out of it than we as a homeowner can.
Yeah, absolutely, and more importantly, we can't have our students taking MCAS tests and losing service.
Right, so my other point is, and this is, I'm a stickler for grammar here, this sentence doesn't read right. In the middle of the paragraph, many of the software requirements include taking MCAS via computer are mandated by the state. I think you mean many of the software requirements, comma, including taking MCAS via computer, comma, are mandated by the state.
I'll fix that.
Yeah, I'm certainly not
Sorry.
opposed to just adding commas.
And I just, particularly with the schools, it's important that you sound right. So just wanted to point that out to you.
This
you
is
have
the most
something else,
routine
Allison?
wording I've ever experienced.
Sorry, it's my thing.
No, I appreciate that.
I just wanted to point out too that as a parent, that there are certainly times personally and that I've heard to others that various schools have certainly had no phone service. So you call, it doesn't necessarily have to be a threat or a community-wide issue. As a parent, when you call to get your student change something, and there's simply no answer, that's certainly a danger as well.
Right.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, Article 10, this is a request from the Board of Assessors, and basically what this article does is it prepares them for the cyclical inspection that's going to take place 5 years from now, in which every property in Groton has to be measured and listed. And to do it in-house would be extremely difficult given a 2-person office. So the assessors voted that over the next 5 fiscal years, we do about 800 properties a year. We have about 4,000 total properties. So this $22,000 I'm recommending comes from taxation. We have available levy capacity, and we add it to the assessor's operating budget, and then next year we fund it at $22,000 a year for the next 5 years because it's a recurring cost. I think it makes great sense, and I'm glad the assessors brought this forward. Article 11.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Grammar, Article 10. We're asking for a sum of sums. I think we want a sum or sums.
Oh, that's a
Second
typo.
line.
Thank you for catching that typo. That's a typo.
And at the bottom of the summary, second to the
Sum of
last
sums.
line, we're going to update property owner record cars or cards? Probably
Another
cards.
typo.
I think you should
So-
let Becky write the summary.
So, can I make a
They're gonna have
No,
suggestion?
no, I don't mean that, I'm
I don't know
serious.
how else to do this, right?
Well, there's a way.
She will
I
be
mean,
your proofreader next time first.
I certainly appreciate these corrections, but they're not germane to the discussion. If we could make a list of them and email them to Mark and Dawn as you go through it, then it won't, let us, continue our meeting with more rapidity.
You're on point, I don't question that, but I agree with Barry.
I will try.
Article 11.
Sometimes I'm reading it right before I get in
I
here.
understand. It's-
Article 11 is Complete Streets Engineering. As you know, we received a $339,000 Complete Street grant. In order to put it out to bid, which we have to put it out to bid, we cannot do it. One of the requirements is it cannot be done by the local communities. You have to spend the money by going out to bid. The town's requirement in there is to actually come up with the documents. We have contacted an engineer. It'll cost us $45,000 to design it, engineer it, put it out to bid to spend the $339,000. So this $45,000 will be a transfer from available funds. Not exactly sure where. I'll have to look at our free cash certification, but we will need that $45,000.
So that spending for design is our.
Our
portion of
requirement under the,
investment.
yes.
Gotcha.
So we spend 45 to get 339. It's a
Understood,
good deal.
yeah.
Article 12 is something.
Mark?
Yes, please.
Is that at all plausible under CPA?
Where? What section?
That's what I'm asking the question for.
I'd have to ask Barry, I don't know.
What-
It'd be an out of cycle, I don't know.
If it's,
I don't think so.
Roads and sidewalk
well,
improvements?
there's ADA stuff, there's all kinds of stuff.
Not ADA within the
Yeah.
CPA.
There's open space, there's,
It's not historic, it's not
I'm just-
open
just
space,
throwing it out
it's
there
not
as an
affordable
idea.
housing.
Not open space.
No. It's a
I think
street.
you could conceivably make the case
No, I'm
that
not
the
trying to pin-
bicycle repair
Open
kits
space.
on the rail
Open
trail
space is
are recreation.
yeah, but it's only like, it's
I would
not
love
worth going
to
through the
do it.
money and the time to do the commitment if it's not
Right.
the whole side. I was just trying to say if there's a CPC funding source, it might be useful, but if there's not, don't worry about it.
You could certainly ask the CPC, but I don't think you're gonna,
We'll ask. Doesn't hurt to ask. What's the worst I can do?
You
Say no.
can be in the same place you are now, right?
Yes.
So, always a good
Yep.
idea.
Article 12, this is an article that Tom Delaney and I are putting forward to the board. We really need to do something with our highway garage. Some deficiencies were pointed out through the operational audit. We haven't touched that building since 1989. When it was originally built, it was significantly reduced from the original plan to meet a budget, and it's in tough shape. So we really need to do something about it. I'd like to do a feasibility study. So based on the outcome of the operational audit, Tom Delaney and I are recommending this article. Now, it hasn't been in the capital plan, but this will put it into the capital plan.
what's the costs anticipated?
I've called a couple of architects, between 40 and 50K to do the feasibility. It's about what we spent on the senior center. We can talk about that more. Now, yes.
Has this been discussed at all by the Board of Selectmen prior to?
No, this is a brand new, and I made that very clear, Becky, this is a brand new proposal.
He likes to smack us at things right in the middle of a warrant review.
Well, I'm a little surprised.
Well, but again, under the regs, we have to accept into the warrant anything put forth by a department head. That's our job. Doesn't mean we have to support it on our recommendation town meeting, but we do have to allow it into the warrant.
Well, I will say this, though. You're right, Barry, 100% correct. if the Board of Selectmen is not comfortable going forward, Tom Delaney and I are going to push an issue the board is not comfortable with, obviously. But we think this is important and it needs to be investigated. And Becky, this is my presentation to you saying we need to do it. This is putting the board on notice. You have plenty of time to either withdraw it or not go with it.
I'm not ready to say yes or no.
Okay.
I guess I'm just assuming that it would be better practice in general to have a department head come in
He'll
and
be here next week during the public hearing.
make a case to us before something shows up on a warrant.
Well, I think furthermore, the operational audit, which certainly there were some deficiencies outlined in there, has yet to be completed by the Audit Review Committee and presented to the Board of Selectmen
Right.
for discussion. And that putting an article like this on the fall town meeting warrant before the demonstrated need has even been presented to the Board of Selectmen through the audit. And while I am not fundamentally against this, because I do think the building is in need of major upgrades, I would respectfully ask that you put this on Springtown meeting. This is really moving fast, Mark.
Okay, no, I understand.
Because if you go forward with a feasibility study and you pop off $50,000, sure, you can put it on the shelf, okay? But if we're talking about spending money to upgrade this, and talking about building a senior center, and talking about funding a capital stabilization account for the school district, and funding the telephone and other upgrades, you know, putting a lot of money on the table right here.
Part of my thought process, I agree with you 100%, Josh. Part of my thought process and Tommy's thinking on this is, if we're going to go out with a major bond issue for a senior center, if we can piggyback on that so we do it once, it sort of made sense to us. But I get your point. Can we leave this on and have Tommy come in next week, talk to the board, and then make a final decision?
Well, I think the point about the fact that it says in this summary that the operational audit was recently released to the Board of Selectmen, which I suppose technically is true, but we have a committee that is going through that, and that was then, I thought, going to come and make a presentation to the Board of Selectmen and maybe have set some priorities on some of the recommendations of that audit. So I don't think we should just jump and put this out to the public that this operational audit is available and the selectmen have already kind of taken it in.
Fair point.
There's no question that the building needs upgrades. There's no question that the entire DPW facility, and I'm not talking about the infrastructure of the fleet, well, it has certain deficiencies. All in all, it's an excellent
You've done a
condition.
good job with the fleet.
But I'm talking about the building itself, and the ground certainly does need some improvement. It's just a timing thing.
Or a process, it's a process.
That's all.
Understood.
Yeah.
So leave it on. If you guys want to pull it next week during the public hearing, you can pull it, but Tom Delaney will be here.
Yep.
And
And Becky, I wrote the summary. We can change the summary, whatever the board wants to do if we decide to go forward with it. But just understand that this was something that we wanted to get before the board, and this is how we're doing it.
I'm going to remote participate next Monday night.
Oh, please do. Please do. Article 13, if there's any money left, the board could decide to offset the tax rate. Allison, that's why I put that one at the end of all the other money articles.
And the chances of offsetting the tax rate are somewhere between,
I
Town meeting
think-
says no.
Yeah.
town meeting said no already last time we tried this, so. I
Well,
mean,
that's because the finance
That's
committee
because
was
Bud
opposed.
Robertson spoiled our fun.
Articles 14 and 15, we need to set up. That creates the enterprise fund for Four Corners, and it puts in the January to June budget. You'll see a full-fledged budget for fiscal 19 when we do it. But 14 and 15 set up the enterprise fund
Why do we need to set this?
because we have to pay bills to air once they connect. And the medical bills is going to connect in
And it
December.
has to be different than the existing.
It's a separate
sewer district.
Because the other existing one goes to Pepperell. right?
Correct. Plus, it's a separate district, and it was created as a
It's
separate
created a
district.
separate district at town meeting, so it has to have its own enterprise fund once it's available.
Article 16 was submitted by Jack. He's not here to discuss it, but he's asking for a ballot initiative to seek approval to authorize the town clerk to conduct polling, election polling at places of worship. That's Jack's proposal. I really can't speak to it.
Is there something that currently prohibits that?
I don't know.
Not according to state law.
He says right here, Massachusetts has no restriction on the use of places of worship as polling places. So that was my question, was whether this is necessary. Because if there are no restrictions,
Then you could do
that
it.
would imply we could do it without.
We can't speak for Jack, he's not here. We can't understand his motivation behind it.
Jack won't be here next week
Other than
either.
what his words are.
You have time to discuss this before it goes to print. I think Jack will be back before we go to print.
Perhaps, Mark, can you email, no, it's Jack, he's
You
not
can't
here.
email Jack, you can't call Jack.
I think what Jack wants to do is, because it could be controversial to have elections in places of worship, he probably wants a sense of the town that they want it before he proposes.
Yeah, but
I'm guessing, I'm
I
assuming.
mean, isn't this the clerk's domain, the town clerk's domain?
I think it is.
I think this, to me too, the other piece of this is that if someone has an objection to their polling place for whatever reason, they can absentee vote in advance. So I don't see that we need to open Pandora's box by moving forward to get permission for something that isn't prohibited, that we don't necessarily need to do any, I mean, this is.
Could you confirm with town council if it is legal to have polling in a place of worship? And if it is, then there's no need for this article. I
Right.
wholheartedly agree.
And someone could take it, your article,
In
you take it off.
which case you could pull it.
Yeah.
But just get confirmation that it's
pretty sure,
legal and
yeah.
that'll take care of it.
I'm pretty sure that in Boston,
I get
polling
it.
happens in churches all the time.
Look, it's a town clerk thing, I don't like to have the BOS.
Let's just get the answer to that and then we can have one less article at town
We've
meeting.
got a church and state issue that people might have an issue with, but let the town clerk handle that as his role and job, and it's
Well,
not something we should get
If
involved
it's
with.
legal, then we don't need to do anything.
There you go.
That's my
Well, if it's legal, which it is.
If it's not
why
legal,
does
we
the board
can't
just take it
override
off
it.
right now?
Because we need confirmation from town council that it's legal. If it's legal, or get it from the Secretary of State. Don't they certify the vote?
Why don't we ask the town clerk?
Ask our town
Why
clerk.
don't- I believe what Mike would say, okay? But I'm saying, go to a higher authority because Jack requested it, and let's just make sure it's correct.
How about we ask the town clerk to verify with the Secretary of
Fine.
State, so we use his chain
Mark,
of command?
Well, the town clerk's on vacation this week, so I will take care of it.
Thank you.
Article 17 is a placeholder. I think it's going to get pulled, so I don't want to spend any time talking about it. Article 18 is a request from the Community Preservation Committee to update their regulations.
I'm interested in this, but I'll wait to hear next week till they present.
Yeah, I didn't understand what
Because
the heck they
I-
were
You know
talking
something,
about.
that makes two of us.
I kind of understand it, but I'm interested to understand the nuances behind it.
I think what happened was, when the various boards appoint somebody, there could be an expiring term.
Right.
So I think they wanted to do this to clarify how that happens. It doesn't affect the selectmen's two at-large appointees.
Right.
But I think they're concerned about what happens if you're on the planning board, you're the planning board rep, and then you get voted off the planning board.
Clearly, maybe a problem happened that they encountered, so they got to try to address it. So I look forward to hearing from them, just to clarify.
Article 9, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think it's beneficial for us, but also for the public, when it's a relatively short piece that's being taken out or replaced in the existing, if that can be in here somehow. So that, I mean, I
Oh,
often
yeah,
at town
yeah.
meeting and I.
You're not telling
know,
what's
this is what
deleted.
it wants to say.
That
but what
what's
does it
being
say now?
deleted
Right,
and what
I
it's
mean,
gonna, how it's gonna read new, yes, it
I think the
should.
motion has to have it in it, even if the package
No,
doesn't.
no, the motion can just have.
I mean, if it were a
Zoning does.
10-page document, obviously that's
Yeah.
a little different, but where it's delete one sentence and replace it
Yeah.
with this,
I
I think
agree.
that would be really helpful.
You ready?
I'm just making a note. Article 19, Tom Delaney and I are proposing this bylaw. It basically gives the police department the right to enforce, and I think, Josh, you'll appreciate this because of what you do.
Well,
in the wintertime.
let's set the snow aside and talk about the refuse portion of it first.
We stole this whole bylaw from Dunstable, and this is what Dunstable has is in terms of throwing litter in the street, which Tom Delaney gets called, or at least I get called, and then I call Tom Delaney. Let's be clear about how that works. If somebody throws something on the side of the road, I send the DPW out there to pick it up because the neighbors get upset and they call the office and then we take care of it. There's no mechanism, if we know who did it, to find them. So we want to be able to do that. It works very well in Dunstable. And the second part of it is discarding of snow in a public way. The DPW plows the street and then people push the snow back
Oh, I
into the
get it.
street. So it's a twofer, so.
People really do that?
Yeah, and you should see what I do with the snow in Dunstable that
I
they
don't
push
know,
out into
don't
the
say
street. It goes back from whence it came.
So, we would like to have the right to give the police enforcement authority. That's what this bylaw does.
I have a problem with it. Not the snow portion of it, but I have a problem that where is it? Where it says after inland waters, or on private property without the written permission of the owner. Well, if the written permission of the owner gives somebody permission to dispose of their trash on their property,
That's really a bad
that's
idea.
not a good thing. And I don't see that enforceable. Read what it says.
You're right.
It doesn't make sense. I'm good with the whole thing.
Except for that sentence?
Or on private property.
Well, what
Let me
he's
talk
trying
to
to say
Tommy.
is that-
Tommy drafted this.
Well, I
Let me
think
talk
what
to
is-
Tommy.
The key here is that if you don't say something about private property, then someone can throw it on non-town-owned property and there's no enforcement. What this is trying to do.
I think that's correct.
Is, and then you have to allow an exclusion that said, no, it's okay. You have to handle this situation where someone's gonna say, no, it's okay. He told me I can throw my couch on his lawn. And then you have to say, okay, well then that property owner has to have give you written permission, and if you have that, we'll get you out of this fine. And if he can't provide that to you, then you're lying to us. So that's why it reads that way.
But you are creating a private dump, theoretically.
Nobody's gonna, no, you're going at it from that way where someone is telling you. What this is there to do is so the guy doesn't say, he told me I could.
This is Rocco's landfill.
Yeah, this can't, nobody's gonna, and if there's
All over here.
there's other lines, there's other things in the town to prevent that kind of thing of private dumping, right?
Let me talk to
It's a little
Tom, 'cause I'm
strange.
sure there's a reason why we have that language.
Other than that, it's great law.
Okay,
Well,
good.
it's got a typo, I'll talk to Don.
Got a typo. Is household one word or two?
No.
One.
Where's the typo? Now you got me wondering.
It's a grammar thing, what is it?
Just she'll get it to you
Okay.
guys, she'll take it.
Article 20 is the acceptance of Chamberlain's Mill Lane as a town way, and the board will be holding that public hearing on 25th of September.
Enough time ahead of time?
The planning board has signed off on it?
We wouldn't bring it to the selectmen without that.
Okay.
And then Article 21 is an article that we received notification from the proponent of this article on the day the warrant closed, that they would like to submit this article. I sent it to the planning board that night and asked the planning board to consider sponsoring it. The planning board wasn't comfortable sponsoring the article. They're generally in support of it, so therefore they said it should be done by citizens petition. So we received, as you can see, 10 registered voters' signatures on it. So I would ask the board, because technically I didn't get the signatures until after the 31st, to vote to open the warrant, include this on the warrant, and allow me to ask the planning board to go through the public hearing process that they're required to follow prior to a zoning vote at town meeting.
I move that we open the Groton Fall Town Meeting 2017 warrant.
I'm going to recuse myself from this.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. So the warrant's now open. Someone like to make a motion to include the article, please? Include the citizen petition, excuse me.
I have a question. This is kind of grammar, but shouldn't Village Business Center be the VBC rather than the VCB?
You know something? I did one of those backwards when I typed it. I was dyslexic. I'll fix it.
Okay. Do you want to say anything more about this article, Mark?
I'm fully in support of it. You can see the citizens petition. Mr. Palmer from 81 Boston Road is the one that requested this. He drafted the summary that you see here. Basically, he wants to take that old former Catholic church and permit the renovation of the property for the use as a theater suitable for screening independent and foreign films as well as for live theater purposes. He's calling the thing the Groton Celestial Theater. and he thinks it's about 120 to 150 people, and the parking lot can accommodate 50 to 60 cars. He's assuming that people come together, so you would have enough parking for the people inside the hall. I think it's a great use of that church.
To clarify,
very excited about
the
this.
warrant article is required to start the process so the planning board can review it.
Can hold the public hearing.
Okay, correct.
So I'll make a motion that we add Article 21 by citizens petition to rezone parcels 112-60-61-62 from residential RAs to village center business or village business center.
Any
At the
I'll
fall
second.
town meeting.
All right, all in favor of including Article
Can I
21?
ask one question first,
Yes.
actually? First question. So this is changing the zone, but it's not making it part of the town center overlay,
Nope,
correct?
nope.
Okay.
It'll do it as part of the village business.
Yep, I just
district.
wanted to make sure that. Okay.
And it's,
Thank you.
that zoning is necessary for this kind of use of the building?
Correct,
is that-
because right now it's RA, and it wouldn't be allowed in RA.
I see.
We had two choices, Becky, when I talked to Takashi. You could have made it RB or the VBC or VCB, whatever it is. There are two adjoining lots that are, one's RB and one's VCB. So it wouldn't be spot zoning. It's 6 of one, half dozen another, but they decided to go with the village center.
And at the at the hearing next week, will we be able to understand what
The distinction.
what
Mr. Palmer will
VBC
be here.
allows? Okay, all right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of accepting Article 21, please signify by saying aye.
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 That's unanimous. I'll accept a motion to close the warrant.
So moved.
I'll second.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, no, it's okay. Any discussion on closing the warrant? All those in favor of closing the warrant, please signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, that concludes my review of the draft of the warrant. Again, the public hearing will take place next Monday at 7:30, I believe, John? Under other business, we have two...
Wait a minute, I just want to say, I still and I am undecided about what I think is the correct placement of what is now Article 1. I'm really not...
The board can change
At all
the
sure.
order up until the day I send it to the printer. So absolutely. Becky, you do not need to make that decision today.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you go to page 42 in your packet, you'll see an email, which is, I'm really shocked, and Marlene and I talked about this, because she was as shocked as I was. Town council had issued an opinion that basically said that the Groton Dunstable Regional School District is not a town board under our charter, multiple member body under our charter. The school committee's attorney disagreed with town council, which I know, Marlene, you and I were shocked by that. It said that it actually is, and you see a definition here. So I went back to town council and I said, I just want you to reiterate, David, what is your feeling? And you can see on page 44, where David says, I reviewed the comments of council for the Groton Dunstable Regional School District. This will confirm that those comments do not alter the opinion in my email of August 18th, which he sent below, that the Regional School Committee is not a multiple member body for the purpose of the Groton Charter, in particular section 2-6 regarding initiation of town meeting warrant articles. The charter defines the term multiple member body with the qualifier any town body. A regional school district is a separate legal entity. In his view, therefore, a regional district is not a town body. So David is saying they aren't. The school district attorney is saying they are. I don't know how you solve that.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It didn't matter for this specific town meeting, okay? As you were willing to sponsor the article for the capital request that the district was putting through.
And I'll do the same thing as I...
However, if another board of selectmen exists with neither you nor any of us who might be willing to sponsor this, and the interpretation that town council brings through is as stated, and the school committee says, well, we have standing and we stand by our legal representation, it could create an issue moving forward.
I appreciate that. I would just respectfully say, let's cross that bridge when we get to it, rather than creating a controversial, crazy issue right now, because it's not needed right now. And since I still have another 2 years of my term, I'm happy to continue to allocate and sponsor school articles and avoid this situation as long as I can. Excuse me, 1.5 years, I apologize.
Hold on, before we go to you, Marlena, I want to hear from the board first, okay? If you don't mind. Any comments on this, Becky?
Well, I think that the board should not ever put themselves in a position of trying to enforce what our town council has said, that the school district doesn't have the standing to submit an article for a warrant. So whether we need to take a vote on some sort of a policy or make a statement, I would be in favor of doing that.
Well, if
Right
I-
now, it doesn't matter, but I'm not sure. It's a little inappropriate to leave it open for the future.
Just to, Josh, if I may, Becky, just to clarify, nothing prohibits the Groton Dunstable Regional School Committee from submitting a warrant article. They can submit an articles, as long as the warrant's open, anybody can. What the particular issue is whether or not the Board of Selectmen has the right to take the article off the warrant. According to town council, you can reject the article from the school committee. You can't reject it from the town clerk, but you can reject the article from the school committee. That's what the distinction is. And it could be, down the road, as Josh said, an issue. It's not an issue as long as Barry's sitting there, but it could be an issue down the road. But then again, Barry, just to clarify for you, if you sponsor the article as a selectman, the Board of Selectmen can vote to take the article off the warrant. All right, that's something that you need to keep in mind.
Not after the new charter gets put in.
No, even after the new charter gets put in. The Board of Selectmen, if it's a Board of Selectmen article.
Hey, that's fine, I'll fight that battle.
Okay, I just wanted to, not that I would ever think they would do that, but I just wanted to make that clear. It's not an automatic thing. So I agree with Josh. I think you need to clarify the position now.
I think it's as simple as this, okay? We have an opinion from our council, we have an opinion from them. I think that we could make it a standing policy, and next time we change the charter, we can clarify it in the charter change next time around, but until such time, under our selectmen policies, if we get a request from the school committee for inclusion of an article on the warrant, I think that we should make that policy that we do so. And that closes the deal.
Unfortunately, it doesn't, because policies can be upended by a future board.
Okay, but at least it's in place for them to upend. Before I go to you, Marlena, do you have anything to add to this?
Nothing dramatic, certainly. I mean, I think that it would be important to update the charter at some point so that whether they qualify as a town body or not, perhaps they need to be specifically named as a group that may put this forward. I think that just out of respect for that board and their role in our community, they would only come forward with warrant articles if it was sound. I mean,
I get it.
There's no, the idea that they somehow need our permission is kind of borderline
Allison, I
offensive.
get it.
I know you do.
Completely get it.
But there's also the Neshoba Tech School District. They must be
In the same position.
Same position. And I mean, I think our position should be that these are other branches of the same government, and we accept their articles.
We'll go to Marlena, but I would like you to put it on for a quick policy that just says that the Board of Selectmen will accept warrant articles from the Groton Dunstable Regional School District as well as the Neshoba Tech, and place them on the warrant. Simple as that. And then let's keep a running list of charter changes. I know Bud will be on the next charter review committee, along with your father-in-law, Allison, so remind both of them of that.
10 years,
So,
Bud, 10
yes,
years.
Marlena.
First of all, I want to say I appreciate the words I'm hearing tonight, because I was really disheartened to even think of the thought that the school district is not able to submit a warrant article without needing the authority of the Board of Selectmen, being a peer board. So I appreciate the words I'm hearing tonight. I know that you had mentioned that maybe the charter needs to be changed. I'd like to point out something that probably your attorney missed in regards to our charter. Section 1.9 definitions, elected officer, an individual serving in elected office who in the exercise of powers or duties of that office exercises some portion of sovereign power of the town. The only multi-member board that is able to call a super town meeting or district-wide certainly has sovereign power, which would mean if our multi-board is not considered a multi-board, that would mean any of the elected officials, according to the charter, would be able to issue that same.
Just point of reference,
Interesting.
that item, town officer, is removed from the new charter. So once the new charter comes into effect, that goes away as well.
Then you have still, you go revert back to the same problem.
Right, you revert back to the problem, but
So-
let's just be aware of that.
That's something that he pointed out
But
to us in
again,
addition.
this doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because I don't think anybody on this board,
Right.
as it stands, and you have at least 3 members who've expressed it, 4, excuse me, would not encourage and accept and want to have school projects in front of the town to have their say on.
And we truly appreciate that. However, I do have concerns in the future.
That's why we want to eliminate the ambiguity by adopting a policy, and then in the charter, subsequent charter change revision in the future, address it then.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the final item, actually I have an additional item I want the board to consider taking up tonight, under your ability to allow it, because you didn't know about it before the agenda was set. But the Audit Review Committee, an issue that came up last week, Allison, when she was appointed to the committee, was, Marlena, don't leave yet.
Don't, guys,
leave yet.
can you just hang out for a minute? We may need your help in a minute.
Allison was on the school committee, and she was a school committee rep on the committee when the committee was created, and then Allison went and did something crazy and got herself elected as a selectman.
Wasn't that crazy?
which put 3 selectmen on that committee, which causes, to me, in my opinion, a problem when you have 3 members on a board and it excludes the other 2 members. And I don't think that's proper. So I would ask the board to consider changing the makeup of the Audit Review Committee and asking the school committee to nominate a rep from them to serve on the Audit Review Committee to replace one of the 3 selectmen currently appointed.
I am resigning from the Audit Review Committee.
So we have a vacancy.
What if we don't want you to resign? What if we prefer that we do
There's
this a
certain
different way?
people in certain positions in government that I would love to have them resign, but that's beyond your control and mine. However, what is within my control is my own resignation, and my resignation is firm. I resign.
So Marlena, I would ask the school committee to designate
That's too bad.
one of their
Sorry,
members
Barry.
to serve on the Audit Review Committee.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda for the 20th.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for sticking around.
You're welcome,
My
thank you.
plate is
Mr.
full.
Chairman, the final
Wait,
item,
wait, can
that I have,
I'm sorry, I'm raising my hand over here.
I'm sorry.
So when I skimmed over this agenda, I saw this makeup of the Audit Review Committee. I actually thought it was makeup of the Prescott Oversight Committee, which you and I had talked about briefly.
Yep.
And so is that going to be on?
That's going to be on next week's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. So, Mr. Chairman, the final thing is I got a request from the Park Commission. Eagle Scout candidate Kyle Zimmer worked on a project where he purchased and installed solar lights to provide nighttime illumination for a number of Park Commission flagpoles. He had $550 remaining from his fundraising efforts, and he asked that a fund be created to allow for future maintenance. I need the selectmen to vote to create the gift fund for that money. I know you're going to do it, but I need you to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
Is that standard? Is our,
You have to create the gift
I
fund.
know, but do our financial people like it that way? I mean, we know.
It's separate funds.
We're doing exactly what they want.
Exactly.
Exactly what they
I
want.
move we create a solar light flagpole gift fund. I don't know. Is that right?
Maintenance.
I like
Maintenance gift fund.
For the purposes of prolonging the life of the Eagle Scouts' contribution to our town.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
We have meeting minutes.
Well, we have.
No, I said that's all I have.
Oh, okay.
We have
That's all
liaison
he
reports.
has. All right, do I need to tender that resignation of the town clerk?
Yes, you do.
I Duly
Make sure
noted.
it's a certain resignation, not your resignation.
I said the resignation from the audit review.
There we go,
committee.
thank you, because, you know,
Well,
He
some
resigned from the Board of Selectmen? Is that what he-
See, I told you.
I thought you were resigning from the select.
Oh, I don't think you did, Connie. But you would know. You'd be the first one I'd call, Connie. Okay, so we have two sets of minutes. One of them was from August, and then we had executives, and I'm so far back, and here, just give me a moment, please.
Yeah, 47 starts the first regular
Right.
session.
I move we
I
approve
saw.
the minutes of August 28th, 2017.
I will second.
Discussion.
I'm sorry, I think that I had a question on this one.
Do you want
Yes, in the last page of August 28th minutes, the end of liaison reports, there was this discussion between you and Jack about whether to include your wife on this meeting. And it seems to me that the last sentence here is not very clear about what was decided.
What was decided was that we would meet with the representatives of the Hindu temple, just Jack and myself on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, and that anything further would be done outside of the Board of Selectmen.
So I think that there needs to be a change here.
to? Yeah, I think that the conclusion, while it was in the paper correctly, is not in this liaison report correctly. It's a good
You mean
catch.
the minutes?
In the minutes correctly, yes.
Yeah, so I think the last sentence should say, it was decided that Mr. Deegan and Mr. Petropoulos would attend the meeting alone.
I concur.
Fair enough.
I
So
move
that's
that
what-
we accept the minutes as amended.
Second?
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I did not read these executive session minutes. I ran out of time.
So do we need to table them?
We certainly can table them till the next meeting.
That's no big
That
deal.
would be great. Thank you, I appreciate that, sorry.
Is that okay, Don?
Sure.
Liaison reports. Any?
I think we've done enough liaising lately.
Yes, we've certainly done a lot. All right, well, you okay?
This is the way he said that. I'm just picturing you guys liaising around town. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, please
It
don't
just struck
picture,
me as funny.
don't picture that.
My phone certainly knows what that looks like, let me tell you.
Well, at any rate, everybody remember to wave to your neighbors. Look out for them.
Good meeting,
evening.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank your first responders
We're adjourned.
and hug your family members.
Good night.